we'll get to open session in a second. Mike, any actions to report?
Yes.
Mayor, we need to do roll call.
Oh, okay, roll call.
Councilmember Nierenheim.
Here.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Kalujevic.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Brand.
Here, thank you. Any announcements to make, Mike?
Couple, Mayor, thank you. Under items F6 and F7, the council unanimously authorized the city attorney to defend the city in both of the cases listed. Additionally, we were joined by Diane Strickfadden, our Human Resources Director, for both of those matters. And it should be noted that we were also joined by Anthony Nash for items F8 through F15, additional outside legal counsel.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to adjourn to a regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any objection? Okay, so our closed session is adjourned. Now I'd like to open us up for open session. So roll call, please.
Councilmember Nierenheim.
Here.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Kalujevic.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Brand.
Here. So let's all rise and salute the flag and take a moment of silence. Okay, ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you, folks. Do we have any presentations, proclamations, or announcements? I don't think, do we? No? Okay. Yeah, move right on to approving order of agenda.
Actually,
Did I miss something?
announcements of council.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
forgot.
Council, announcements from council members and the mayor. Councilmember Nairnot. I was forgetting something.
Yeah, there you go. All right, thank you, Mayor Brand. Couple things. I saw today on the city's new Facebook page, city design logo. 3 questions, 3 simple questions. Logo design, font style, and name sizing. Go ahead and click on the website link, give us your input, and move on from there. We are launching our new website and everything else here in the next few months. We're gonna get that done. So the more you help out, the more is community input we have, the better we represent. Next weekend, I believe, is the 10th, Saturday, September 10th is my community meeting, right? 12th, excuse me, Saturday, the 12th is my community meeting at Alta Vista, 9:30 a.m. It's the second Saturday of the month. So come on down for that. We will have a lot on the agenda to talk about. I did not have a community meeting last month, so it'll be good. And as, also don't want to forget, happy belated birthday to our city manager, whose birthday was last weekend. So good work, another year. As want to let everyone know our travel stuff, a couple of up here traveled for the city. And this weekend I went to summer seminar down in Coronado, California, down by San Diego for ICA, Independent Cities Association, for our summer seminar. And it was a really well attended event. We had some really good conversational topics. Thank everyone from city manager here and fellow council members who made the time to come down. I really appreciate it. It's awesome because you take time away from your friends and your family and your personal lives, come down and do more work for the city. And it's a piece that I didn't think about when I got elected, and it's a significant amount of time, and it's time away from your personal life. So I want to thank everyone who participated in that in other cities. One of the highlights that we had there was George Gascon. I got Mr. Gascon to come down. I met him in June for a meeting among some other cities. We were discussing the things that were going on and in all of our local cities. And I asked him when I stood up and had a couple of my questions ready to go, come on down to ICA. And he, a lot of people have different opinions about what's going on, and a lot of people get elected and fight for what they fight and believe in. And some just sit there. Mr. Gascon's fighting for what he believes in, and he was willing to come down to a group of over 100 elected officials and staff that he directly affects, and he was willing to stand up in front of them and say, these are the policies that I'm fighting for, and here's my story, here's the why. And to hear his story, how he kind of grew up and how he was in policing. He's been the whole spectrum of law enforcement, law creation, was very interesting. And we had some really great questions from members of city councils across LA County. So I thought it was very eye-opening. I now have learned a lot more about him and his position. I don't necessarily agree, but what makes us as elected officials moving our ideas forward and understanding each other. So that's really important, is the understanding of each other. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Lowenstein.
Congratulations on running a good ICA.
Thank you, sir.
A couple announcements. The District 2 Community Evening for August will be on Wednesday, August the 16th, 2 weeks from tomorrow night, 6 to 7:30 on Zoom. I have a special guest. It is District 5 Council Member Scott Barrett. So will be joining me. So thank you for joining me. A couple other things. One is I want to thank RB Fire Department for putting out a structure fire at Hydro Cleaners over on PCH. I don't know if it was a 2-alarm fire. It was a lot of trucks there, I think. And thank you for putting that out. It's tragic to the owner of the business, but I'm glad that you contained the fire, didn't spread to Petco where he had animals and customers over there. So thank you for all the work with that. And also shout out and thank you to Public Works for doing a terrific job on slurry sealing in the Burl Heights neighborhood. You did a great job. That area needed a lot of love, and we appreciate you guys doing that. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Kalujevic.
Yes, I just want to thank President of ICA, Councilman Nierenheim. It was a great event. I learned a lot, met a lot of great people, great content. And just one quick note that I got a few emails about coyotes in the area. Keep your pets safe inside. They're roaming around.
Okay, Councilmember Obaji.
Also wanted to give a shout out to Councilmember Nierenheim, President of ICA. He got a lot of accolades there at the meeting for turning the organization around. He previously, years past, discovered an executive director who was stealing money from the organization. Now it's got a healthy bank, and they're doing great programs, getting great speakers down. I want to tack on, I agree with everything he said about DA Gascon, and what I add on that I learned is that part of the reason why the DA doesn't want to put people in jail is because of the total and utter lack of confidence in our jail system at rehabilitating folks. So he says, I asked him point blank, why is it that the meth user who's potentially schizophrenic now from the meth use is better off on our streets than in the jail? He says, well, if you go to the jail, you'll see nobody's going to get better off over there, and they're going to be put back onto the street with no job, no way to earn a living, and it's not going to be a good situation for you. So that was a little eye-opening, though I don't, again, completely agree with him, and that issue needs more attention. I also want to say thank you to our Redondo Beach Fire Department for their prompt action. They put a cool video up on Instagram showing themselves sawing into the ceilings of those commercial structures to air out the fire, put it out, and prevent it from going on to other structures next to it. So kudos to them, and thank you to the other fire departments, I think Torrance, Manhattan Beach, who came and provided mutual aid. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight is National Night Out. It's a community partnership with the Redondo Beach Police Department. It's happening.
Stole my,
Is that you, Mayor?
that's all I had to say.
From-
Your flyer. Okay.
It's tonight, it's right now, until 8 p.m. It's going to be in District 5. It is in District 5, Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center. I was out there earlier with Quality of Life Officer Kyle Lofstrom and some other people, so I do recommend you make it by there if you can. And I also wanted to thank our Los Angeles County Supervisor, the Honorable Holly J. Mitchell, for putting on an incredible event this past Saturday that I had the pleasure to attend. Racial Justice Learning Exchange at Dockweiler Beach. It was just incredible, very enjoyable. We screened the movie Wade in the Water, A Journey into Black and Aquatic Culture. And so special thanks to her and her chief of staff, Frederica McGee, and certainly her district representative, who I think all of us know, Jocelyn Waldron. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Barron. Okay, moving right along, approval order of agenda. So any proposed changes to the agenda or
If I may.
motions to approve? Yes, go ahead.
I would move to have item P2 come after public participation on non-agenda items.
The start time for city council meetings. Unfortunately, it
Yes.
won't take place tonight, but I'm in favor of that. But anyway, is there a second to approve agenda? Is that your only proposed change? Anybody got some other changes they want to make? Is that a motion? Second?
Yeah, motion second.
Any objections to moving that? Okay. So ordered. There's our agenda. As printed, except we're moving item P2 to where?
After J1.
After what?
J.
J1, okay. Okay. Blue folder items. Do we have any blue folder items?
Yeah, we have one for J1, public participation on non-agenda items. We have public communications, and you received that email earlier today.
Okay. Motion to receive and file.
Second.
So
Did
So
I
moved.
do something wrong?
Second.
Guys are looking at me. like-
Thank you.
You can make the motion.
It's so moved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Happened before. Okay, moving on, consent calendar. Tonight, we have quite a few items on our consent calendar. These items are all passed in one big motion unless somebody wants to pull any item off the consent calendar. So, Councilmember Nairnov.
No, I don't want to pull anything, but I would like to point out, I believe the last one, item H16 is a resolution to declare Sunday, September 10th as Open Water Swim Day for Swim the Avenues. So if you haven't signed up, it's only a little half-mile swim, or if you want to go for a little bit longer of a swim in the ocean, just from 1 mile long down the avenues, Rick Crump and the whole crew creates that event down there in the avenues. I know two of us up here in the council are doing the 2 mile swim for the big event this weekend. But the half mile, 1 mile is on Sunday, September 10th. So come on down for that. And I just wanted to point item H16 out, and that was it. Thank you.
Okay. H16. Yeah. You don't need to pull it, just comment on it.
Yeah.
Councilmember Lowenstein, any item?
No, thank you.
Oh, Councilmember Dewey.
None for me, thank you.
Councilmember Obaji.
I don't want to pull H8, but I did want to comment that thank you to the chief of police and police department for bringing forward this agreement to increase the number of crossing guards in the city, which is extremely important to residents with kids. So thank you for prioritizing kid safety.
Councilmember Barron, you want to pull anything?
H6.
H6. Okay. Okay, with the pulling of item H6, is there a motion to approve the,
Motion to approve all items except H6.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, does anybody like to speak on any item other than item H7 on the consent calendar?
H6,
H6, sorry.
that's okay.
Okay. Is something on the consent calendar?
Not exactly. I just want to thank the people who talk about on this thing, not like in Torrance. Torrance, we cannot do this, so
Yeah,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you. Yeah. Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objection? Okay, so order item H6.
Oh, wait a minute, I got to read.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So H7, adopt by title only, resolution number CC-2308-069, a resolution, City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, leasing certain properties to Holiday Carpet and Floor Covering, Inc. Number H10, adopt by title only, resolution number CC-2308-070, a resolution, City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, amending the official book of classifications for the position of communications supervisor. Adopt by title only, resolution number CC 2308-071, a resolution, City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, amending the official book of classifications for the position of emergency services dispatch, adopt by title only, resolution number CC-2308-072, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, amending the official book of classifications for the position of emergency services dispatcher trainee. We have two more. H15, adopt by title only, resolution number CC-2308-073, a resolution, City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, approving and adopting the annual appropriations limit for fiscal year 2023-2024. H16, adopt by title only, resolution number CC-2308-074, a resolution, City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, proclaiming Sunday, September 10th, 2023 as Open Water Swim Day in the City of Redondo Beach in sponsorship and support of the 5th Annual Swim the Avenues Water Sports Event to be held in the City of Redondo Beach coastal waters, and appreciation of the County of Los Angeles' efforts to permit the event and provide logistical support. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's always a fun event. I've done it a few times myself, and we're trying to get the Olympic open water swim here in Redondo Beach in 2028. So wish us luck on that one. Anyway, item H6, Councilmember Barron, you pulled that?
Yes, to abstain.
Oh, okay. Is there a motion to approve item H6?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and with Councilmember Barron abstaining,
And anybody
abstaining, what am I trying to say?
recused?
Okay, any objections?
We need to ask the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is a public comment on item H6? Okay, seeing nothing online, Eleanor?
No, and we have no e-comments also, just for the
Okay.
record.
Okay.
And this one I don't have to read.
There's a motion and a second with one abstention. Okay. Any objections? So ordered. All righty. Moving right along, we're into public participation on non-agenda items. This is always fun, usually. So this is an opportunity for the public to opine on any subject that's not already on the agenda. So I'll call the cards in order, and if you didn't fill in a card, that's okay. You can come down and speak anyway. So first is Prache Sharma, and after Sharma is Eugene Solomon.
Hi, my name is Prachi, and I'm a Redondo Beach resident. Aside from that, I work full-time as a scientist in aerospace and defense industry. And I'm here to introduce somebody who really doesn't need an introduction. His name is Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar, and he would be coming here in the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center to lead a meditation on August 12th. A huge amount of achievements on his list. He has founded the Art of Living Foundation, which is the biggest organization with about 99% volunteers recognized by United Nations. Council member Obagi mentioned about the prison, how things are not getting better. He has worked with 800,000 prison people all over the world and achieved something that has been not achieved before. His contributions to mental health, astounding. All the forgotten segments of the society, that is where he has made the biggest difference. 180 countries, that is how many countries we have the programs, mental health and well-being. And I'm here to invite the mayor, the city council, and all the city of Redondo Beach for this biggest meditation event. We are expecting 1,000+ people. And please come be our honored guest, and it would be our pleasure to host you for that. That's why I'm here. Really, really would love for you to come. And the reason why you should be here, I'll tell you, it's a treat for the soul. That's what it is. I am one of the skeptics. A scientist's mind would be like that, but my journey started back in 2003, and to this day, I get up every single morning and I'm super excited. Yes, I gotta do my practice. And I mean, my expansion has happened so much so that aside from all the regular go to work, take care of the kids, the amount of volunteer hours I'm able to donate I attribute all of that to his inspiration. So yeah, would like
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, and I don't know what you want, but just so everybody knows, oh, yeah, motion to,
If you've received
second? Okay, motion to accept. Sorry. I was just trying to say thank you for letting us know. When is it again?
It is on August 12th.
12th, okay.
And we are getting.
Yeah, quick question.
And where does one find tickets?
You can get on and yes, it is, yes. We have it.
Well, just for us and everybody.
The public.
Yes, that is, I got some brochures.
I believe it's at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts. You can get it there.
You can check that out as well on the
City
website.
website.
There we go, thank you.
Okay, Eugene Solomon, and after Eugene Solomon is Gabrielle Delgado.
I seldom get to raise a microphone. I'm usually lowering it.
Eugene is our city treasurer, for those who don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Eugene Solomon, Redondo Beach City Treasurer. Approaching you tonight as City Treasurer. I've had the opportunity since being sworn in on April 4th with some of the members up here to observe our operational procedures and tactical functions within the city. In June and July, I had the opportunity to discuss these procedures with the Charter Review Committee in the context of the City Treasurer's duties within the Charter. During these discussions, it has become apparent the city is operating in a manner that may be inconsistent with the dictates of our city charter regarding the city treasurer responsibilities and have been for approximately the last 15 years. The Charter Review Committee will be examining this issue going forward and has for the last 2 months. I'm here tonight to urge your cooperation and urgency of the council in support of the committee and the staff to expedite solutions for this critical issue. As I speak today, meetings have been scheduled between members of the committee, myself, and the city manager's office in addressing this matter. I do recognize that there are many priorities within the city. I would again urge you that this will be a very important matter for you to please address. I seek your support and help, my fellow elected representatives, in providing whatever aid you can to the staff and to the Charter Review Committee in expediting next steps, including but not limited to having members of that committee report on their progress and update you on this issue. I do not wish for this important item to succumb to political posturing or division. This is an issue for all of us. Incumbent upon us to see a problem and fix a problem as elected representatives of the public. I again respectfully ask for your support in having this discussion at council for solutions sooner rather than later. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Solomon. Next up is Gabrielle Delgado, and after Gabrielle will be Nikki Negretti Mitchell.
That's good. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Gabriel Delgado, and I'm here representing Southern California Gas Company's Pipeline Integrity Program. Our program aims to satisfy the compliance requirements enacted by PHMSA and DOT, and in turn, ensure the safety and reliability of our natural gas system. I'm here today to discuss the strategy for executing 2 pipeline inspections requiring temporary workspace within the Redondo Beach Dog Park. The additional workspace will allow for staging of required inspection equipment. One of those equipments is now we're mandated to essentially capture our gas, reintroduce it back into our system, so that prevents release of gas into the atmosphere. The 2 projects are an 8-mile and 13-mile inspection, one beginning in Carson, the other beginning at Playa del Rey, and both of them ending at the Redondo Beach Dog Park. Since our last inspection of these 2 same pipelines, we've actually partnered with the city of Redondo Beach, and we've actually relocated our facilities to the northeast corner of the dog park. And that essentially eliminated a lot of significant traffic impacts, street interruptions, and heavy construction on 190th Street. Recognizing that our projects were coming up again on our schedule, our group understood the benefit to align these project schedules back to back and essentially allow for 1 mobilization versus 2 separate construction events. To meet our inspection dates, we're asking to mobilize this month in August and demobilize May of 2024. Essentially, this will allow us to complete both compliance inspections and their necessary construction activities. We've been working alongside the Redondo Beach staff and Friends of the Dog Park to ensure that all aspects of the project are considered. Having said this, the dog park will remain fully operational, including the dog training facility that was identified by the staff at the southeast corner of the park. We've also identified improvements to the park that will remain in place after our project is concluded as well. And lastly, our outreach department is fully engaged and prepared with proactive and continuous communication with our neighbors. There'll be signage and banners posted at the dog park with specific project information and direct SoCal Gas contacts so that the public can inquire or communicate a concern that may arise. In summary, SoCal Gas is requesting this temporary workspace from the city of Redondo Beach to meet our pipeline inspection compliance. And we're committed to working with the city, Friends of the Dog Park, and the impacted community during our construction and restoration efforts. Thank you.
Can I ask a point of qualification? Where is it, will you be taking additional land out of use on the dog park?
Correct. Our current station is located in the southeast portion, and we'll be taking the
Northeast portion.
on the northeast portion of the park, and we'll be kind of expanding from there. I believe it's a couple feet, nothing. The main dog park area will still be operational, and we're pretty much cutting a third of that, give or take.
A third of?
A third of the main dog run area.
Okay, we'll take it offline. Thank you.
Yeah, I can provide a map after.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delgado.
Thank you.
Nikki Negretti Mitchell, and after that is Holly Osborne.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you. I'm Nikki Negretti Mitchell, District 3, and I'm a fourth-generation South Bay native. Redondo Beach Quality of Life Coalition was founded 3 years ago with a specific focus on Redondo Beach's right-of-way community. During COVID, it was nearly impossible to meet, and there were a lot of other issues happening that affected my neighborhood, so that was a tough time. Right of Say started up by Glenn Brackenridge of Lawndale in 2017, and members used to meet early on weekend mornings, which I could never attend. And then things got quiet for a few years, until October 2021, when Glenn and I both attended a Redondo Beach City Council meeting, which hosted Georgia Sheridan and Mark Dierking. That is the first time I laid into them about what was, to me, the most absurd, disingenuous, haphazard plans I could ever imagine for such a colossal project with permanent infrastructure that could result in such devastating consequences. I had been boiling over this for years already, so now is my chance to tell them how I really feel, and I don't mince my words. From there, Mark reached out to Glenn for a community meeting, and I got invited. I laid it out to them for the first time, and they were receptive. That was December of 2021. And ever since then, I've been closely involved talking with Metro execs and project managers about everything that came to my mind. Fast forward to the draft EIR, and we find more haphazard and deficient studies, analyses, and reports. All I could do is put all of my energy into calling everything and sometimes everybody out. And to my amazement, I see they, not everybody, but enough, have been hearing me. A lot of the hard work is paying off, and now here we are. Redondo Beach Quality of Life and Right of Say have been functioning as one. We are what I refer to in the context of this project, the right-of-way community. Those of us who are actual stakeholders. We are unified, and together we've accomplished what nobody could imagine, except a handful of us. We greatly appreciate the interest of those who are not impacted like we are, but know in their hearts and minds what's fair, what makes the most sense, and they have stood by us, and thank you to them. So our group is planning a big field trip, which I've been able to individually get a hold of a couple of you. And I'm here tonight to formally ask for Redondo's participation in a minor co-sponsorship with Lawndale to get the shareholders up to downtown LA so we can participate with the board of directors when our case gets heard at the end of September. Once we get a head count, I can forward those details, but Lawndale has made a generous pledge and are asking Redondo to take part. So please reach out to them. It would be Sean Moore for more information. And thank you once again for all of your support.
Thank you. She can just approach you, Council Manager Mike, yeah, about that, yeah. So those who don't know what she's talking about, she's talking about the C line extension, the green line extension. It's going to go from currently where it ends into Torrance. So Holly Osborne, and after Holly Osborne is John McKinney.
Okay, good evening. My name is Holly Osborne, District 5. 2 weeks ago, I attended the city council meeting on objective residential guidelines. The meeting was not run well. But here I want to make comments on 2 areas. First, the R1A, R2, and R3 guidelines, and second on the R1. On the first item, FARs were being introduced, that's floor area ratio, for R1A, R2s, and R3. We had not had FARs in this area before, but since we need objective standards, a planning commissioner had gone through typical FARs in these neighborhoods in an effort to get a FAR for each of these that would ensure some kind of compatibility. Redondo is sort of unique in this type of housing. North Redondo, where most of these units are, has derisively been called Redondo Beach. But these dwellings were meant to be Redondo's attempt at providing housing for people of more moderate means, but as of late, developers have been pushing the limits on these buildings, finding loopholes, and in general, McMansionizing these units. A Senate bill was passed a couple years ago calling attention to these kind of multifamily dwelling and referring them to as for the missing middle. The way the developers are building them now hardly meets the definition of missing middle. It seems that they are doing their level best to get rid of the housing for the missing middle residents in direct conflict with what we need. That, Mr. Developer, is why we need these objective standards. The planning commissioner who spoke after Brandy had suggested new FARs, but a calculation error had been made earlier on the R2s, and so it was caught and pointed out in his presentation, what he made a couple weeks ago. But when he pointed this out, one of our paid consultants said, "We knew that." My engineering blood boiled. If you knew that, that's what I thought to that consultant, why did you not correct it sooner? Why did you let the chief city planner present her charts with the error? In my line of work, people would be fired before behavior like that, knowing an error had been made and not pointing it out and letting it perpetuate. Like I said, the commissioner corrected himself, but that was after Brandy had already presented it wrong, okay? I get worked up and stuff like that. Okay, to recap, the FARs he was presented were 0.94 for R1A and 0.886, the correct FAR for R2, not what's in all the things. And then for R3, if you don't like the FAR he came up with, why don't you go to the one in the Senate bill? Scott Wiener is always right, and so I'll give you his, 1.0. Okay, now, the second part of mine is R1s. I don't think I'm going to get about it, but talk about it too much. But I live in the TRW tract, and I walked through and I looked at the houses, and most of them are really nice. And I think the guidelines can be adjusted from what, well, I guess I have to shut up, unless you're going to move to extend.
Yeah, motion to extend.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
go
let me
ahead.
just say, the new guidelines state many of the early Redondo Beach homes, including those built after World War II, this is R1, were designed as starter homes that could be expanded to accommodate growing families. While these homes were not intended to remain small, neither was there an expectation that they would one day become so large, either by demolition and rebuild or addition, as to overshadow neighboring properties and compromise their privacy. This is from your standards. That one statement sums it up. Do not overshadow neighboring properties and do not compromise privacy. The ones I've seen were basically okay. I went through 20 in my neighborhood, and I would actually like to be able to talk to a developer and come up with satisfactory standards that would achieve those. Basically, I would ask a developer to build one, and then what would he not want to have built next door? I think that somebody could help with that. Okay, thank you.
Question,
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
clarifying question. All right, were you referring to the Senate Bill 478? Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay, the one that sets minimum FAR standards?
It says, it had, yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Osborne. Just so everybody knows, there is no more R1 zoning in the state of California. According to SB 9, it doesn't exist. Anyway, Mr. McKinnon?
Thank you.
Would you like to bring the podium up to the middle if we could help them?
Yeah, there's a button lower to the right if you want, if you'd like.
I think it's at maximum height here.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's still set up for.
right. It's fancy.
Brand new. Special for you.
All right. Well, good evening to this esteemed body, each member, Mr. Mayor, and to the residents of Redondo Beach. My name is John McKinney, and I work for you. I've been a deputy district attorney in Los Angeles County for 25 years. I am originally from New Jersey. I left everything I love, everything I hold dear in this world behind in the mid-90s and came out here to attend law school at UCLA. And I've chosen since then to make Los Angeles my home. Because like you, whether you were born here or you, like me, came here from someplace else, we appreciate how special Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles County area is, including our coastal cities like Redondo Beach. But I stand here before you tonight because, like many of your residents, I have a great deal of concern about the crime and disorder that we've seen in Los Angeles County over the past few years. It's frustrating and it's angering, particularly to somebody like me who's been with the DA's office since the 90s. And if you recall, crime was quite bad in the 90s. Violent crime was about 200% higher on average than it is today. And we brought that crime rate down. In 2014, Los Angeles was voted one of the safest big cities in America. Now, we weren't perfect in the way we did it. In hindsight, some of the measures that we used were heavy-handed. They were. But they worked. And there are countless people living and breathing and thriving today because they didn't become statistics in the 90s and 2000s because of our attention to crime and our assistance on accountability, something that we're not getting today. I ask you, who in law enforcement at the county level is fighting for you and your residents? Who's advocating for you? Who's listening to you and your businesses as they suffer this grotesque form of open, brazen theft? The crime we see today is very different from the crime we have witnessed at any other time in our history. I mean, people aren't even covering their faces anymore, right? Because they know there's no consequence for what they're doing, or very little consequence, I should say. I should know, I'm the deputy in charge of the East LA area courthouse, where we supposedly prosecute misdemeanors, but I'm hamstrung from prosecuting half the misdemeanors in the penal code. Thankfully, you have a city attorney who's able to handle those quality of life crimes. In closing, I just want to say I wanted to come here tonight to introduce myself. I'd like to open up a dialogue with you. I'm running for district attorney in 2024. We need a change. I think everybody in this room appreciates that. Certainly your residents do. And I look forward to meeting you and having a coffee with you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming down, Mr. McKinney.
Real quick, sir.
Yes, sir.
Actually, you don't have me over here.
One more. Okay, Mr. Mueller, I believe.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I live in District 5 on Matthews Avenue, and I was very happy to attend a community meeting that Scott Barrett held recently. He encouraged us to come down and talk to you about things that concern us. Well, I live on Matthews Avenue. Matthews Avenue is a one-way street. It's kind of narrow. It has sidewalks on both sides. The sidewalks are used regularly by people walking their children, by older people just taking a walk around the corner almost through the entire day. with the opening of Chick-fil-A, it has become a thoroughfare for people leaving there who don't want to mess with the traffic lights. So since I've lived there for now 12 or 13 years, that street has not been repaired or paved, and the sidewalks have not been redone. So I'm asking you if you can put that on your schedule to do that, because on the one side, there are people who park, but on the other side, people don't park. And the pedestrians walking on the sidewalk are very vulnerable to being hit by the cars coming up the street. So I think it'd be a public safety issue as well as a public improvement. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jim.
Camille, that's exactly what non-agenda items are for. And yeah, we can have staff work with the neighborhood and consider speed humps, things like that. Just repairing it, as you mentioned, so. Anyway, you don't have to have turned in a card to speak under non-agenda items. Anyone online or anyone in the audience, feel free to take your 3 minutes and talk about whatever you want to talk about, as long as it's not on the agenda.
Hello, my name is Andy. I'm from Torrance, but I used to live in Redondo Beach until my in-laws chased me out. So I bought a house in Torrance, and that's where I spending my life. Anyway, I came here today because I like your treatment of your citizens. You know, you don't have those enclosures like in the city of Torrance. You can come up to the podium, what the citizens pay for. And more importantly, you give 3 minutes to your citizens to address you, not like in Torrance. Of course, Torrance, they have their reason because they want to hear from everybody. So pretty soon we're going to be done for 30 seconds or something. But city council in Torrance, they just hate their citizens. So they don't want to talk to them. They don't care about their problems because, especially people like me, English as a second language, 1 minute is just so much, you know what I mean? What am I gonna do with 1 minute over there? But here, I like the 3 minutes. I can come down here, look at you in your eyes. I don't need the glasses to see you, and keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. And the other thing, I just wanna warn you, the city Torrance have these pilot schools, and all the citizens were against it, and they did something about it, but not too much, not too much. They give out licenses illegally for flight schools, and I don't know how that happened. I hope you don't give out illegal licenses, but don't forget to complain to the city if the South Redondo, get a little bit too much airplane noise, because city of Torrance is claiming they're raking in big money from the pilots because the pilot shortages, So I don't know how the pilot shortage is going to be solved by these little pilots, with this one little coffee grinder engine airplanes. But, they lie. They just lie, and if you speak up, they kick you out, So I'm very law-abiding citizen. They did not kick me out only once. Pat Furry kicked me out without a reason because I said La Dolce Vita when we celebrated the Italian month, but that was, unacceptable. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And also that you, when you're interested in something important, that you extend, the speaking. Thank you very much.
Sure. All right. Move to Redondo. What can I tell you?
Too expensive. All my relatives moved to Idaho.
Density.
You can afford the city.
Yeah, River Dirty. All right. Anybody online wants to speak under non-agenda items? Any more in the audience?
None on Zoom and none on.
How much fun it is?
And no e-comments, Mayor.
Okay. That's the end of public participation on non-agenda items. I guess we have no public hearings, so we moved item P2 to item after non-agenda items. So with P2 up next.
Yes, P2, I guess I'll go ahead and give the introduction. Luke's behind me here. He did some of the research regarding other city council start times. As you all know, item P2 was a referral from the council at our last open session meeting to discuss agendizing and considering taking action to change the start time of our closed and/or open session public meetings. There's a little bit of research in there that shows a myriad of times different agencies start their meetings in the morning. Some start later than we do. It's really a functional choice of the city council as a policy item to determine what works for you as you best serve the community, and then what works for access among our citizens and residents to meetings. I will say this issue used to be fairly straightforward in that starting the meetings later in the day was necessary to allow members of the public to access the council matters after they return home from work. As this body knows, work schedules have changed, and I will also add that access to our meetings has evolved with the advent of Zoom and electronic participation. So that's a newer concept, and we have expanded the ways that the public can ultimately interact with the council as you deliberate on important matters. But aside from that, you all have to decide, I think, as individuals, do you have the ability to take the time personally that's needed to ultimately be here consistently and to work collectively in your job as volunteers as city council members. So not much to add other than that. This is, as I said, purely a policy matter and open for your discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Mike Witzinski. Just my personal opinion, and I'll open it up. I think we need to start earlier. These meetings often go to 11 or 12 o'clock at night. I've seen them go longer than that. Yeah, and there's so many ways to participate now. I mean, you can actually attend the meeting, you can go online, you can write us, to force everybody to be here, including our staff, to be here starting at 4:30 and all the way to whenever is, I think unnecessary in this time and day and age. So, I'm in favor of this, but I don't have a vote. So I'll leave it open to the council. Sorry, I still don't, who was first? Councilmember Barrett, you guys?
Well, is your thing logged into your?
Still don't have this popping up on me, so. Anyway, go ahead, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I agree with everything that was said by the city manager and everything you said there. I think it's important that we hear from all of the city council members on this. It's why I ask that it be agendized for discussion. And we all know from even my short experience on the council that as we get later in the evening, 10 o'clock, and beyond, the public participation, the folks in the audience leave in any event, and they're missing out on a lot. So I think by finding a time, if possible, that's a little earlier, we may actually be able to maintain and sustain even more public participation in public, and to your point, Mayor and City Manager, on Zoom and otherwise. I appreciate the good work of the Assistant City Manager, Luke, who's here, in compiling start times of other city councils. Inglewood, for example, starts at 2 p.m. I visited the Inglewood City Council and connected with Mayor Butts, and it was packed at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, for what it's worth. And the citizenry there were very engaged. I spent some time with our county supervisor, Holly J. Mitchell, over the weekend, and they start at 9:30 a.m. And, again, it's very engaged and essentially a packed crowd. So I'm keeping an open mind till we close this, but I am in favor preliminarily of starting earlier. I think it's better for public involvement. I think as a city council member, I'm a little leery about making the most important decisions of the night in the next morning, right? 1 a.m. or 12 a.m. or what have you. So I'd like to start earlier if we can, have fresh minds and a robust community engagement. And so, yeah, and I'll throw out just for discussion, maybe we start closed session at 2:30 p.m. We get in, give ourselves 2 hours, which super packed, and then come right out for open session at 4:30 p.m. and get started and get through the afternoon and hopefully no later than the early evening. So with that, I'll release the floor.
Yeah, let me just ask a couple procedural questions to the city manager. Mike, if we wanted to make a change as he suggested, would this have to come back as an item?
Yes, our start time is enshrined. It's an attachment to the report in an ordinance that was last approved in December, it looks like, of 2008. We would have to come back and introduce an ordinance that would propose an adjustment that would have to be adopted and read a second time, and then effective 30 days after that. Seems like it would be hard to justify an urgency action for this type of a change. So it would take multiple steps for us to implement a change in time. But obviously, we could start that effort following tonight's direction if it's the will of the council to
Come
see
back
a
to the
change.
discussion item.
Well, it would come back, you would actually direct us to draft an ordinance to introduce a change in the start time, and we would come back with an item that would introduce that ordinance for your consideration of approval.
Okay, if the council wants to
Yeah,
do it.
it sounds like based on what Mike's saying, we could probably have it to you by August 15th at that meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Mayor, if I may, one other point. Nobody from staff has approached me, hey, let's start earlier. But I'll just say on my own, our staff is great, and you'll never hear them complain about staying late. But the reality, I think, is when they stay late, and not all of them live super close by the time they're home, and not just in bed, but able to sleep after being engaged and stimulated through these discussions in the night, a lot of them are right back here the next morning. And so I'm concerned about them and their productivity and quality of life as well for what it's worth, so.
Yeah, just so the public knows, when you get done with these meetings and you're participating up here, it takes an hour or two to wind down, right? Our meeting may end at 10, but trust me, it takes at least an hour, probably two, to wind down, get to sleep and get to work in the morning. So just thought I'd throw that out there. But anyway, it's open for discussion. Is there a light? Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Your hands up too. Do you have your logged in for the?
Yeah. You guys are laughing and yeah, I'm glad for entertainment. I don't have a.
I didn't even know that was touchscreen.
You didn't know it was.
Our touchscreen's left us.
Yeah.
Are you logged into the meeting?
Logged in?
Join. No, you gotta join the meeting.
Oh, there we go.
View speakers.
Thank you.
Okay.
So first.
So Nils, thank you.
All right.
Nils.
Mayor Brandon, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate this item about not going so, about going so long. And what I see here in coming here for a while is the volume of items that we have that are coming to us because we are a busy council. We are busier than any other council in the South Bay. City of El Segundo has 2 meetings a month, and then sometimes they cancel, a lot of times they cancel one of those 2 meetings. Sometimes they cancel both. Manhattan Beach only has 2 council meetings a month, as well as Hermosa, and they actually start later than us. My solution for this would be to allow us to even have more time, which is have a 4th meeting of the month. So a lot of Tuesdays of the month, or a lot of months are our 5th Tuesdays of the month. That would give us some time off. By giving us that 4th Tuesday, we have multiple hours moving forward. We have to think about the public. They're working until 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night, and they're trying to come down. Yeah, things have changed, but it's the allowance for public to come down and speak, and yeah, we might go late. We have a rule for that, 10:30, and we should probably enforce that and go from there. I don't have the time that I need to be able to do to come in here starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I just don't. I've taken my Tuesdays off enough. I've given up a lot of my life to be able to be here. I have to work. I have to end up essentially working 6 days a week at minimum. I know the public has a tremendous value to be able to come down here at 6 o'clock, as do our commissioners. When they come down here and they volunteer their time, they have to deal with childcare. They have to deal with jobs. They have to deal with getting the time off. I know the meetings, the nights are long, and then the early mornings. But I think the way we move forward here is to have a fourth meeting of the month and have that consistently, because that would allow more these items to be spread out. Because if we go to the format that we're thinking about right now, which is on the second meeting of the month, only closed session, we would have a tremendous amount of people or items on that closed session item, and then the first and third Tuesday would be closed session and open session. By allowing us to have a fourth meeting of the month, we can balance all of these items out, and when we don't get to something because they get to 10:30 time where we can now go home, we can move that to the next Tuesday. So that would be my suggestion, is to have a fourth Tuesday of the month meeting. That's it, thank you.
City manager, is it require, I mean, I thought we had the flexibility to do that already.
We can. I think what Councilman Aaron and I'm saying is more of a matter of habit. We would know and schedule and coordinate a fourth regular meeting. We have the flexibility to call meetings as needed. As this body knows, we, on occasion, will have 5 meetings in a month. It has happened when we have 5 Tuesdays. But as a matter of regular scheduling, we don't always count on having the fourth Tuesday be a council meeting. We do it when we have a loaded agenda or calendar, which, as was pointed out, tends to be just about all the time around here. So, and I will add to the conversation, just so the council knows this, and thank you, Councilmember Barron, for bringing it up. And you're absolutely right. Our staff, we're here to serve you. We're here to serve the public. However late that goes, that's our job. That's what we signed up for. That's what we're paid to do. And you won't hear us complain about that. Absolutely. Everybody who I hire and is part of our organization knows coming in what those expectations are. That's part of what we do as professionals. So please don't use that for any reason other than, yes, we do acknowledge that it can be late at night and there are quality life impacts, but we're here to serve. So I just want to put that on the record. But do appreciate the sentiment.
I guess what I'm getting at is, what official action does this require? I mean, like informally, I remember Councilmember MD said, I suggest we should stop meetings at 11:30. And so it was really just kind of suggestion, and it would come up, 11 o'clock.
It's
11:30.
your
Hey, we're
rules.
past our time, or 10:30 or whatever it was. So what official action?
Nothing. It's enforcing your own rules. I mean, really, that's what it is.
So we're making our own rules here.
Well, it depends on what change you want to make. That was actually her making a motion to follow your own rules. Both the changes, whether to mandate a fourth meeting a month or to change to an earlier time, well, if you put it in there, I'm not saying that, if you're saying in there that it shall meet the first, second, and fourth meeting, you have more certainty, or if you're wanting to change the time. So if you want to change the time or change the frequencies, you need to give direction for us to return with an ordinance. Next meeting is mostly closed session, so it would be on the August 15th meeting. It would, if it got approved for first reading and then introduced and then approved upon second reading on the, are we meeting August 20th?
That's possibly based on the
It
calendar.
would be 30 days after second approval, or you could specify this would start as of this date. It wouldn't have to take place in effect 30 days thereafter. So it's entirely up to you. Those things all require change to your current ordinance.
Okay. Is that it? Yeah, Councilmember Lawrence.
Well, first off, I agree that it's been a little bit distressing that our meetings run late because of the public's lack of opportunity to participate. I totally understand that. In fact, I brought it up about a month and a half ago. That being said, many of us up here have very demanding work schedules. It's a stretch for us. This is a second job for me. And it is probably for many of you. And, you know, we have obligations not only to our voters, we also have obligations to our full-time employers. So we put food on the table for our families. To ask council members, first of all, to ask council members to be here at 2 o'clock is just not reasonable. It's just not a reasonable thing to do. 3 times a month, more or less 4 times a month. In terms of, I'd be open to maybe a little bit of an earlier start, but in terms of a 4th meeting, I'm very opposed to that for a variety of reasons. One is it's taxing on staff. The second thing is it's taxing on us. You're talking about if a month has 4 Tuesdays in it, then you're talking about 8 Tuesdays in a row or 12 Tuesdays in a row, no breaks. No ability to travel, or if you travel, remote meetings, then you start running into quorum issues. Issues with taking vacations, because some of us need a break up here after we've been working very hard, not only on our first job, but on this job. I think one of the things that we're missing here is that, and I brought this up again a while ago, was running our meetings efficiently is really the thing we're trying to get here. We're trying to get through the items with plenty of public discourse, plenty of input from us. But as the Planning Commission has done, they put 5-minute time limits for each council member and the discussion moves faster that way. But it's still thorough. And to me, I would like to give that a shot because you might find that we would be able to accommodate everything we want to do. We start on time, end on time, get through the discussion, get plenty of input from people, and make good decisions at a good hour. So I think, you know, and I find it hard to believe that we can't do that. I think we can do that as a council. I'd be open to a 4 o'clock start. That might be tough, but you know, it's really tough to think I could even do a 3:30, more or less at 2 o'clock. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you're going to anger the public very much. We had a meeting about 6 months ago or 5 months ago where it started at 3 o'clock, and you had people here that were very mad because they had to take off of work to participate. Even if it starts at 4 o'clock or 4:30, you're going to get a lot of people that are very upset about this. And you're going to hear it from people. And it's going to look like we're not trying to get input. We're trying to get as much input from people as possible. So I think it's a bad mistake. As far as, you know, the county supervisors, that's their full-time job. You know, they're around the clock. You know, this is our second job. And, you know, it's the county. It's an $8 billion budget or whatever they have. 44. Is it 44? Oh, 8th biggest state. Yeah, exactly. 44, sorry, thank you. It's a huge budget. It's a huge organization. I understand why they start at 9:30 in the morning. And not to say that we're not an important organization, but, you know, and many of us are very committed up here, but that's a big commitment to say every Tuesday you have to take off at 2 o'clock. I mean, I would have to go to my manager, all this. It's really a lot to ask. And the other thing is, people aren't going to want to run for council if you start at 2 o'clock. They're like, I can't take off at 2 o'clock, even on every 3 Tuesdays a month. So I think you're making, I think it's the wrong way of going about this. I really think it's about efficiency, running the meetings so that people have a say, but that the conversation moves forward and that everybody has a chance to say something, but they do it on a time limit. And Bill, I don't think you were here when talking about it, but looking at how the Planning Commission does it, they do a great job of doing it. So that's what I would have to say. I think we should be very careful about altering this and altering it, especially with 4 meetings or starting really early. So that's my take on it.
Okay, Councilmember Kudlow-Dervich.
Yeah, just a few things. I do think that we'd be limiting the people who would actually participate if we open it up during, let's say, at 2 o'clock. I think there will be some members of the public that will be able to attend, but as that other special meeting showed, other members would be very upset that they would have to take off work to participate. I personally, I have to pick up my kids at school. They get out at 2:50. I don't always have someone else to help me out with that, so that would be a challenge for me as well. And I do think that the goal is to be more efficient. I think the more time that we give ourselves, we're going to suck up that time. I think we just really need to focus on being more efficient with our time, our comments, and our decisions. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Councilmember Mbaji.
Yeah, I hear everything everybody's saying. I agree that efficiency is where the priority's got to be. We just had an ICA discussion about mental health being in public office and being here at a very inefficient rates because sometimes people drone on and staying till very late making decisions is not good for the mental health, especially because I personally feel like when I get back home, especially when we're here until midnight, it takes 2 hours to fall asleep. The next morning I wake up to take a deposition and I feel like I have the biggest hangover ever, having consumed zero alcohol or zero substance of any sort and waking up the next morning. So, Councilmember Lowenstein, you can't be uncompromising on both sides. I've seen you leave the meetings early because you got to attend to work the next day. And then we hear from Councilmember Nierenheim, you're being undemocratic because you're making a decision with Councilmember Lowenstein not here. So, yes, when you need to leave, you got to leave. And we're holding down almost each of us, 2 jobs at least. And we get that. But we're also going to be criticized for making decisions when there's less than full body here.
Yeah.
So, I also would like to just add that for me, a Tuesday is a wash as far as work, my other job goes, because usually there's phone calls, meetings with staff, et cetera, to precede these meetings to help inform the decisions. And essentially Tuesday is the day in which I delegate to handling city business, including resident concerns. So I don't mind encroaching further earlier into the day on city stuff. But with that said, I'm not going to do that, against y'all's wishes or vote for that against y'all's wishes or abilities, because that's not going to achieve our goals. I will say that special meeting at 3 p.m. that got people in an uproar, because the subject of it was removing a council member from the dais. I don't think it was just having it appear here, because they would have called in on Zoom if they wanted to just express an opinion. But they wanted to convey their opinion in a meaningful way by standing here in person to convey it. So, and that was, by the way, this room was full on 48 hours notice for a special meeting. So I'm not so concerned that people are going to be in an uproar. But what I would like to know is, to the extent that we change the times, could we designate it in the ordinance to be by council resolution as to when the start time is? And set a range. So if we have a light closed session schedule, maybe we start at 4 p.m. or 4:30 again, versus if it's a heavier one, then we start at 3:30.
That's a question.
And for staff, for the city attorney.
Yeah, I haven't specifically researched that. I wouldn't, off the top of my head, the downside to it is the public wants certainty. They want to know when it's going to be, whenever it is. I'm not saying you can't do it by resolution, but I want to look at that. I have a couple of thoughts from what I've heard you say. I'd be careful about going through efficiency. The planning department hasn't been sued yet, so I don't know that I would just follow that. When you're looking for efficiency, you have to remember this is the pinnacle of free speech. And if you're, as was mentioned early, you can either shorten the public's time, that you have to be careful of abridging free speech, or your time. Courts have held legislatures have maximum free speech in terms of defending the policies for which they were elected. So it's not like there's some other cost. What I've heard from you, I'm wondering if you said you might be able to get here at 4. Maybe start at 4, and if you do the second Tuesday as only closed session, that would allow you to devote all open sessions starting at 4. You'd have the freedom to go to that fourth Thursday, but not fourth Tuesday if needed. And if we needed a decision on an urgent closed session matter, you could always do it at the end of the meeting, which is what it used to be before I got elected, or when we started. We wouldn't go into closed session until midnight. And it was horrible. So maybe that's a compromise. I haven't heard from Councilman Nierenheim if 4 o'clock would work for him, but if that would work for you, you could pick up your daughter, you get the earlier time, and it's just starting at 4. And that second Tuesday, we can really spend meaningful time on the closed session stuff. And we'll know that we won't just have, an hour and 15 minutes to get through it. That might be a compromise from what I'm hearing, all of your schedules. So I only throw that out, just having listened to you, so.
And if we had, I assume I still have the floor, if we had a need for an open session item on the second Tuesday, would the city manager be able to agendize that?
Yeah, the way it reads right now, the meeting on the second Tuesday of the month shall be primarily for the purpose of duly authorized closed session. So you could still do it. It's just become, as a matter of practice, when you have 20 items on there, you're not really following that. But maybe that would work for all of you.
Yeah, I'd be open to that. Yeah. I mean, 4 o'clock is, I think, reasonable. I think the only concern.
Councilmember
sorry.
still has the floor here.
Yeah, that generally sounds good to me, so I yield the floor.
What he just suggested.
Yes.
Yeah, just point of clarification on that. But what I heard in there as well is that 4 o'clock being potentially open session only.
It's only.
Yeah. Closed would have to go after the fact. I just want to make sure everybody understands that from a general public's participation standpoint, starting the meeting at 4 on open, the one thing about closed being early is the public doesn't generally participate other than they have the opportunity to make a comment as we start the meeting. Right. Open session is generally when the public is most interested in the work we're doing. So just bear that in mind. But yes, to Mike's point, we could, on those nights where we would need, say, leasing matters or other direction that must come more frequently than sometimes litigation direction, we could do that after the meeting, and we could just ensure that there's an opportunity to get back into closed session before it gets too late.
And then the public wouldn't be deprived because they don't attend closed session with us late at night, the way people leave when it gets later.
Okay, speaking of the public, does anyone from the public want to comment on this?
Hello, this is Andy. I'm not a resident here, but I would just like to tell you the city of Torrance started earlier, and it did not do any good because most of the time what takes up the meetings is the city council, yada, 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 yada. And it's very important for the public to attend the meetings, and because this is basically the only chance they can talk eye to eye, like man to man. You know what I mean? Because, typing on your whatever, little email, I go in Zoom, those are not the really thing, man to man. That's why politicians and businessmen go to make a deal, not on the phone, person to person. Anyway, so the city council in Torrance reduced also the numbers of the meetings to 2, and that's why we over there for midnight or 2 o'clock. Plus, when the BLM shows up, they go to closed session all of a sudden, and they had people wait 2 or 3 hours. So my suggestion would be leave the time alone, because people have hard time to come here. People have kids, people have things to do, people have to have dinner, and 6 o'clock is already early enough for people who have jobs. And in my opinion also, leaders should be old farts, with experience and age, and not to worry about childcare, not to worry about, whatever, how they're gonna make up a living. I understand you guys have jobs, but people who do this job should be available and do it for the public good. You know what I mean? And if it's a problem for you, then let other people come in. That's my opinion. I have 50 more seconds. I'm not very good because I'm down to 1 minute, as I told you lately. So the emphasis would be on it, leave or even start later. And if you need more time, the closed sessions when you guys can, so the public doesn't know, keep things in secret, how much you pay out for this dude, how much you pay out for legal fees. So keep those at 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and the public meeting should be at least at 7 o'clock. So people can go home, wash up a little bit.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Okay, I have 3 more minutes. Second, okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anyone online or anyone in the public want to speak?
Hello, Nikki Negrete Mitchell, District 3, and I don't have anything particularly smart to say other than I just know everyone would be really angry to take away any public time. I know if the public time comes earlier in the day, they'll be extremely angry. Myself, I'm very flexible. I'd be happy, but and then I see some people on the council would have problems with their work. So I don't know. It just seems, I understand not wanting to be here so late. That would, and making decisions, at that hour. So perhaps the one Tuesday where it's all closed session is probably the best way to go. That's just an opinion. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, we kind of already have that, actually, Nikki. One meeting just for closed session, second Tuesday of every month, generally just for closed session, but it's veered into pretty much everything. Anyway.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Wayne Craig, resident of District 1. 10 years ago, if someone, one of my friends said I would go to a city council meeting, get on a budget and finance commission meeting, I would have told them they were nuts. If they was told I had to go there at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't think I would be able to. I would be working. In fact, I'm working right now. I have my laptop, like sending some counter offers off. I was working until just before I came down here tonight. I had that flexibility. A lot of people don't. So unintended consequences of this might be if you start too early, you may get less public participation and probably a little bit more angry comments or the people trying to log in. Because even though we have the Zoom, which is a great option, which we didn't have until COVID, people are still working till 5. I don't know of employers who will like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm on a Zoom call with my city council meeting. I don't know how well that's going to fly over a lot of employers. But getting back to about efficiency of meetings, I worked for a Fortune 500 company. I had a large unit of people, 500 people, a bunch of managers. And when I got hired, I saw we had meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. And sometimes it got to the point, especially with a company like Brinks, there was so much on liability, we just had a meeting because we had to have a meeting. And I just said, why are we having 10 meetings a week when we can have 2? And what we did was just basically run them more efficiently. Now, that said, I don't think having a egg timer and giving people, 3.5 minutes, 5 minutes, and is going to cut them off. I think what happened in that one was I just ran the meetings more efficiently. as a moderator, the mayor pro tem has that option. And prior to the current council makeup, I think probably, I made a joke about this to a couple of council members, but I said that if you cut out the filibustering, you'd probably save about 30% of your meeting time. Now, that's because one council member would repeat everything that everyone said for the hour before they got to the point they were trying to make. So I think probably just keeping more of a directed conversation might be important. I don't necessarily setting an exact time limit might be a good thing, because I think you might have issues that Mr. Webb brought up too, where the public might feel that their representative is being cut off to the public. And I actually did a little research. I found some city councils do that. There's been some pushback. I'm sure you've looked at that as well too. So there's definitely a medium there, but I think starting too early might be a bad thing. I think probably a better, more focused meeting might be more important. You might get more things done. But I don't necessarily think having a stopwatch to have someone talk is, we all have different backgrounds. Some of us are more or less articulate than others. So, I think you have to give that opportunity to get a point out. And, some of you represent people who want to make sure that you say what they want to have you say. And I don't know if you can do that in a couple of seconds, in 3 or 4 minutes sometimes. Anyway, just my thoughts. Obviously, that's something to think about, but just be aware of the rule of unintended consequences. Thanks.
Okay, anyone from the audience or online want to speak to this issue?
I didn't plan on doing this, but this was a very interesting discussion. And I see it as a very serious issue because it affects the performance of the council and the performance of the people in the city. And that affects the attitudes and feedback that you get from your constituents. So my suggestion is there must be a consulting firm that has addressed this issue with other cities. And can you find maybe some money for a fee to hire a consultant to really study what happens at the meetings, what the requirements are for the meetings, and put together a plan that would allow you to come up with a way to have your meetings that would be less intense and less burdensome on you, as well as allow the citizens their opportunity for feedback.
Thank you. Anybody online, Eleanor, or anyone in the audience?
No Zoom and no e-comments at this point.
Okay, I'll let everybody speak, but I just want to comment, the thing that I'm hearing is most important is consistency. Consistency, whatever we decide up here. The public should know what we're doing, and everybody can make plans. It's 2 nights a month. I used to work there. I always had to be at work at 5 in. We'd get out of here and have to wind down. I'd get like 2 hours of sleep. But again, it's only 2 nights a week, maybe 3. And if you're running for office, you get a plan for this. And just that's why consistency is important, because if you're going to run and you have kids, you're going to know what it's going to be. And, some people can't do it. I've talked to plenty of people. I'd like to be on the council, but, I travel, I do this, I do that, or whatever it is, or I have kids, and then they wait until that comes to an end and they run. But, consistency to me is most important. And, yeah. So anyway, it's up to you guys. Councilmember Lawrence.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. Just for clarification purposes, you said 4 o'clock for open session?
Yeah, so what I was saying is there would be no closed session on the first and third, and only in the second, and only if we had an urgent matter. And then that way, it wouldn't go as long.
Yeah.
And, but it wouldn't require the 2 o'clock or 2:30.
Well, I said 2:30, but I like what I'm hearing from you
instead
now.
of the 2:30, then everyone could be here. We wouldn't go as late. You wouldn't worry about abridging anyone's free speech. So I was just threw out a suggestion that I thought you were all saying you could live with, and just pointing out that anything that we needed, we put it on the second meeting unless something had to be happen, and then we just add that urgent matter on at the end of the first or third, and you'd have the flexibility to go to a fourth meeting.
Yeah, because oftentimes closed session is required, not,
Yeah, I don't mind.
Can't wait for another month.
The 4 p.m. start, that's fine. I'm just a little concerned, as Mr. Craig had mentioned, about people being able to participate at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Again, the first obligation is to our residents. right? And then after that, it's staff and to the rest of us. So I'm open to a 4 start, whether it's a closed session or open session. But, just be wary of a 4 o'clock open session start. I think we have to be really careful about that, so.
Okay, let's move towards, speaking of efficiency, towards making a motion on something. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Yeah, I agree with this idea of consistency, but starting at 4 o'clock for the public goes against why we're here is for the public. We've got 5 council members and a mayor, 5 completely different lives, people completely in different points in their life, doing completely different things. Then we have to think about the public that's out there, and you have a whole spectrum of people on the public. None of the solutions are good because this is government, this involves everyone. I think looking at other cities like Manhattan Beach, they have special meetings that are appointed, like during the budget season, they'll have a 12 o'clock budget meeting, and it'll last for 2 or 3 hours, and then they're done. So efficiency in that manner is good. You can have the public come down and meet for a few hours. You can have the public meet in different areas as council chambers or wherever else. But also you have to think about different leadership styles, different leadership types of individuals. Some want to ask a lot of questions for the public, for themselves, they learn. When Councilmember Horvath first got here back in 2015, he asked a whole litany of questions on the budget. When I got here in 2017 in June, we went until 2:30 in the morning and I asked a whole litany of questions. I wouldn't want to hold back a council member from learning or the public from learning. We have to keep that in mind. We're all very smart up here. We all know what's going on. But in the future, it really, we have to think about the public, what they're seeing, what we're hearing. It's not about efficiency. It's about understanding, letting them being able to participate in an effective manner, and that we hear what they have to say and we don't show up with these preconceived notions and ideas. Because there's been many times where I've gone longer than 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I've listened to the public and I've changed my mind. And that only happens through consistent listening to the public. So I'd rather just see us go utilizing special meetings or the 4th meeting of the month if we need to, if we have a 5th meeting. I would like to see us, I'm not very happy with the idea of going to a closed session only on the 2nd Tuesday, because it's going to put more pressure on the 1st and 3rd. I don't want to start the open session at 4 p.m. I would reluctantly agree with a 4 p.m. start, but that was the absolute earliest I could start at 4 p.m. for closed session only, if we do closed session and then open session. But again, I want to also remind everyone that we're here for the public and we have 5 different schedules, and we have other meeting options such as public workshops or special meetings that we can utilize as well to help get through some of these larger items, to take them off the bulk of the agenda. So that's where I stand on this. Thank you. I'd keep everything the way it is, and just with the comments that I said, have the city manager work with the mayor on getting special meetings for large items that take a long time.
One option here is to simply move the start of the open session meeting to 5:30. And then we have the ability to set closed session at 4. And on the 2nd Tuesdays of the month, if there is an event where we only have closed session, we would begin at 4 until completion. We wouldn't have to come back out for the 5:30 open session item unless there was an item of need. Right now, the ordinance simply says open session meetings are at 6. It does at least give us an additional half hour, and it still gives us flexibility perhaps for those 2nd Tuesdays when we only deal with closed session to begin at 4. I will say the pendulum has swung on this over the years. As Mike pointed out, there was a time we did closed session after the meeting, and we were making very important closed session decisions at midnight at night when we were absolutely fatigued. We have now got to the point where we're making very important open session decisions at 10:30, 11:30 when we're all fatigued. So
4 a.m. also, don't forget 4 a.m.
There wasn't, yes, and we've had some early mornings. Never thought I'd see a sunrise coming out of City Hall, but we did.
Would have been 3:30 then.
So that might be maybe all we do for now is just bump it up 30 minutes, and at least that's a little bit of movement, and then we can all be here at 4 o'clock for closed session as opposed to 4:30 as we do now. It's something.
Okay, we need to get to a motion with a second, because everybody's got ideas, and get and direction should be to come back with a discussion item where you can then.
Well, with the ordinance, you can come back with the ordinance. This is the discussion item, so you can direct the ordinance.
So, with that in mind, Councilmember Barron.
I'll make a motion, and I really like the compromise put forward by the city attorney. I think that strikes the right balance. And so my motion will be to begin the open sessions at 4 PM on the second Tuesday of every month. We do the closed session at 4 PM. If I understood that correctly.
It take you literally, so you mean second Tuesday is primarily for closed session.
Yeah.
And start open session at 4 o'clock on the first and third Tuesday of the month. Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Is that your motion?
Unless the city attorney needs further guidance.
No, he knows me after a little over 2.5 years. I do take what you say literally, so I appreciate
I'll
that.
second it with a friendly amendment that I'm not looking at the language, but the language emulate what we have now so that you can set a fourth meeting if we do need a fourth meeting and so on and so forth. And I'll just remind other council members that you can always move J, public participation on non-agenda items to certain, like 6 PM. We could always, decide to do that either regularly or on an ad hoc basis if we feel like people are not coming to item J and we want them to come.
Okay. Well, that's my motion. I give it a try.
What's your friendly amendment?
To incorporate whatever other language is currently in our language that gives the city manager flexibility to set a fourth or fifth meeting if necessary.
Yeah, right now, the shall is limited to the first 3 Tuesdays. Whatever we do after that is just we're adjourning to the 4th or 5th Tuesday.
Okay, great.
Okay, I have a substitute.
They have the.
We have the flexibility
already.
now. Yeah, as long as we're limited to saying first, second, and third in the ordinance, that's what we're obligated to do.
But what he's getting at is you also have the flexibility to call a fourth meeting.
Yes, we do.
You have that already?
Yes.
Okay, so no more amendment? You don't really actually have
anything. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion. And do we have a second on what he was suggesting?
Second.
Any clarification needed, please?
Well, we've got another potential friendly amendment.
Or substitute.
Or substitute motion.
I just had a clarifying
Yeah.
question. So in that situation, then we would start all of our meetings at 4 instead of 4:30, open or closed, depending on
That's right.
Tuesday. So
Yeah.
we're adjusting it by 30 minutes. And
That's all. We'll give it a
open
try.
session, then it shifts for 2 hours, right?
Give it a try.
Okay, we have a substitute
I
motion?
do have a substitute motion. I'd like us to start at 4 o'clock, closed session on Tuesdays, and open session at 5:30 on the first and third meetings of the month so that the public can participate. And if there's additional items that need addressing afterwards, we can discuss that after the open session meetings, as Mr. Webb had mentioned. I'm very leery about starting at 4 when people can't get off of work. I think it's really a challenge. It's the same time for me, I don't care. But I think starting at 4, you're going to get a lot of angry people. And it's not just item J, it's all the items. They want to say on all the items. So
you're.
My motion is 4 o'clock for closed session on Tuesdays, on the second Tuesday, and then
5:30 on the first and third Tuesday.
5:30 on the first and second, or first and third, sorry.
For what? For
For
open
open
session
session and for
on the second Tuesday.
on the second Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's a good.
Second Tuesday as needed.
I was gonna say, it's the point on I've heard it too, that people don't want to stay late. They want to come earlier. We'll see where it goes. But most people, are willing to, on those occasions, come earlier, knowing that it takes 15-plus minutes for us to actually get going. And so that's been the sentiment that I've heard. But you're right, you never know where it's going to go, but at least on a trial basis, starting at 4 p.m., I think is worth exploring and doing.
So is there a second to the
second.
substitute?
I'll
Okay,
second,
so there's a
Councilman
second. Okay, Councilmember, well, Barrett, you already made your comment. Councilmember Nierenheim.
I was going to make a comment just to clear, so closed session only on the second Tuesday,
Correct.
right, starting at,
Closed section only on the second Tuesday, but it can also be addressed after
but we
an open
can't,
session meeting.
right?
Yeah.
On, starting at what time?
Open session,
Closed session?
be it
On the second Tuesday.
the second Tuesday would be at 4 o'clock.
Okay, and then the first and third Tuesdays would normally start for us when we get here for open session only at 5:30?
Correct. Would that, Mr. Webb, I have a question for Mr. Webb. Would that allow us to take care of our business for closed session at 5:30? If we.
No, that's not what was proposed.
It was 4 o'clock closed session start.
No, I meant if we did this schedule, could we meet our needs for closed session?
Well, my understanding of your motion was not to have closed session on. Did I misunderstand that?
So.
On first and third
So
Tuesday.
let me tell you what I heard, and then you can tell me if that's correct.
Okay.
Essentially, you're making two changes. One is moving everything on the first and third up by half an hour.
Correct.
You're going to move closed session, which you'll have now, on the first and third, starting at 4, and the meeting starting at 4:30. You will only have, sorry, 5:30.
Is that what you
5:30.
Yeah.
But let me, because
And you
that
will,
isn't what I heard.
That's not
What I heard was the first and third Tuesday of every month, open session only, start at 5:30.
Yeah.
Is that right? The motion maker, is that right?
That's correct.
Thank
Okay.
you. And the second Tuesday
is
of every
only
month.
for closed session.
Closed session only, starting at 4 o'clock. Is that right, motion maker?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That would be a
Is that
problem.
still a second?
So
That is not.
Okay, so the second has been removed.
Okay.
Okay?
So to answer, so anyways, the problem with that would be we get a case, we get a lease with
let me make a
something that
substitute
we
motion.
can't wait a
This is the
month.
second substitution.
Okay, so,
Let me make a substitute motion.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the last motion, and then we have to have a vote on the first motion. Is
No,
that correct?
No.
My final motion.
The second,
So this is my substitute motion.
substitute, because his didn't
He
get a
didn't get a second.
Oh, you withdrew. I'm sorry, you withdrew. Thank you. Yeah, he withdrew.
motion that's on the floor.
Yeah, so my substitute motion is to start all 3 council meetings at 4 PM with closed session. And to start on the first and third meetings, to start 5:30 PM open session. And the second meeting of the month, only open session if need.
So it's a closed
5:30.
session then.
No,
the
only
second.
closed session.
Only open session at 5:30 if we need it.
The second meeting is primarily closed session.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah,
time does the
that's,
meeting start on
that's the
Tuesday?
Kind of
better.
what we have now.
Everything starts at 4 o'clock across the board.
Okay.
So you're leaving the language the same. It's
Right.
primarily, the second meeting should be primarily
Should be, yeah.
for closed session.
Right, that's
Which will
flexibility.
start at 4 o'clock, but you could add something
could.
at 5:30.
Basically what we're doing, but it's moving everything back.
Just moving
Basically-
everything up 30
basically,
minutes.
All right.
You're moving up by 30 minutes.
That's it.
It's not a,
Right.
That makes sense.
Clarifying question.
Yes, sir.
She seconded, right?
Yes.
All right. Would the open session on the second Tuesday have to be at 5:30?
No. We could do it.
Only if necessary.
If it was necessary, would it have to be at 5:30?
it depends on what the motion
Right, so that's
is.
my question for the motion maker.
What he was clarifying.
If we have a long closed session agenda, because it's the second Tuesday that was supposed to be dedicated to closed session, so we're in there for 3 hours, Are we gonna have to come out and do open
it
session
wouldn't.
at 5:30?
I see the point. You're trying to see. It would not be agendized. It would be a different agenda. It would be closed session only, and open session would not be agendized. We'd come in here at 4 o'clock, open, do our closed session, and then come back at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever. It's exactly the same idea. That's it. If the city manager has a phenomenal lot of items that we've requested to put on there, then he could put on there, hey, you know what, you have a light closed session as per the city attorney on the second Tuesday of the month. You have a light, you took care of it on the first or the third for the previous month. Then you know what, let's do 2 or 3 items real quick, get them done through on the second Tuesday of the month. We'll start at 5:30. But it's primarily closed session only.
So if I may.
It's the way the clerk sends out the agenda as per the city manager and the city attorney.
Right. So the good part of if it's 5:30 is it gives certainty to the public. The bad part, we run into the same issue that we're running in now, which is you have an hour and a half and then, or you have to break to run out here to take care. I think that was his question. I'm not arguing it. I think that's what he was getting at, and you can address it.
Okay, so again, that would only be a problem if we agendize 20 items for closed session, and then we sit there and go, oh, we still have some open session. That's not going to happen because if we have 20 items for open session, we wouldn't be agendizing or for closed session, we would not be agendizing an open session. So that's where the city manager and city attorney and the mayor also work together, all three, and say, what are we doing with our agenda for the second Tuesday?
Don't want the open session items to ruin the closed session.
And one thing I would point out is the way the ordinance reads now is it just sets your minimums.
Right.
So what you're doing is you're drafting the ordinance to set your minimum open session meetings for the first and third Tuesdays that would start at 5:30. You're agendizing and setting 3 closed session meetings that would start at 4 p.m. on the first, second, and third Tuesdays. Everything else we do in terms of adjourning those meetings to another action is based on what we do on the agenda. We don't have to have it be prescriptive in the ordinance. We just have to provide notice. So if you want to keep it very simple, we do a 5:30 open session start, first, second, and third, and we do 4 o'clock closed session, and we cancel the open session meeting. Well, no, we can't.
No.
Again, we don't set the minimum.
No.
We just set the
No.
minimums for the 4 o'clock closed, and we have the open sessions first and third Tuesday, and then we adjourn as needed for action.
Well, that'll work, but is that your motion?
It's 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock start of closed session and 5:30 open session meetings first and third Tuesday. And if we have a need on the second Tuesday, we'll put it on the agenda, or we'll have a meeting on the fourth Tuesday as an open session matter if we have more items that we have to cover.
Can you share
And it says,
my screen? Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, we
no,
definitely.
unfortunately
I
not.
don't understand.
So if you could open the ordinance, it's attached to it's your
What
30
you're saying,
attachment.
Mike, is that
It will help.
It just says.
It's what I'm going to
Pretty simple.
make the changes, and then you can decide which of them.
Right, and you can actually share my screen, I think, yeah.
The second attachment, ordinance 30320A.
Are you A?
1A?
Okay.
All we have to do is put 5:30. Yeah, it's done.
So I think the difference between these two is literally meetings. It's going to, one is going to say, shall be heard at the hour of 4 p.m. And the meeting on the second Tuesday of the month should be primarily for duly authorized closed sessions. And the other will be 5:30. And the meeting on the second Tuesday shall be primarily for the purpose of, so the competing views are, if you start at 4, you're less likely to get out very late. If you start at 5:30, you're less likely to have people not be there if they can't make the start of the meeting, but you really won't make a dent on it. The issue that I heard Councilmember Obaji getting to is you're just going to have to take a break at 5:30 the way we take a break at 6. What I heard you saying is, yeah, but we're not going to have that many things on it, so it won't have to be that long a break.
No, that's not the way it's going to be agendized. When it's agendized, this is not, my motion is if it's needed, and it should not be phrased that it shall be, that it should be the first and second Tuesday of the month at 5:30.
First and third.
First and third at 5:30. Every first and third Tuesday of the month at the hour of 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
And the second Tuesday of the month shall be primarily for purposes of closed sessions with, if needed, a 5:30 open session.
Well, I heard you, and I think what Councilmember Obaji is saying is part of the issue, if needed, is we have to take a break an hour and a half into closed session. And that's all I heard.
Why would we need to take a break? Because we're not making an agenda that says we have an open session item, or we're not going to
I'm
open
saying
session.
whenever you have an open session item, you're going to have to take a break.
You're talking about the second Tuesday.
And then exactly what we're doing now.
Okay. So
Exactly what we're doing now, though.
Yes.
Yes, exactly what we're doing. We're not taking,
okay.
it's
It's just the flexibility, frankly, of the second Tuesday.
So it's up to you. Really, it's a competing issue of, one will make certain that anyone who might miss it at 4 shows up. However, it won't make much of a dent in the lateness of the hour, and you have to decide.
So what time would the Tuesday meeting start?
5:30.
5:30, okay.
For open session. Open session.
but all meetings start at 4 p.m.
That's what
Under the
that's where
substitute motion.
you just change it. So at 5:30 on the second, let's talk about the second Tuesday. Let's stick to the second Tuesday. 5:30 open session if needed, with the meeting starting at 4 o'clock.
For closed.
Second Tuesday.
They all start at 4 o'clock
Okay.
for.
Got it.
So
First,
the
second,
one-
and third start at 4.
So the flexibility
difference
for an
is
open
you're gonna
session on
have-
Tuesday, but
The difference is you're also going to have closed sessions on all 3 meetings versus you're going to have more time for open session, but less for closed session on the original motion, because that's going to have no closed session.
okay, well,
unless
let's
it's
stick to his
needed.
motion.
Okay.
Because it's
Yeah, we can only discuss
confusing
my
enough.
No, I'm just trying to compare the two so you can
So
decide.
is that clear though?
We can only discuss on the motion that's on the floor.
I know. And so is that clear now? Everybody understand his motion?
4 o'clock.
Scott, you look like maybe you don't understand.
I do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second to his
Yes.
motion?
She already
I
seconded.
seconded.
Okay. There we go. Anyone from the public want to comment on this motion? The substitute motion. Okay, then we'll have a vote.
And we have no e-comments.
Is there any public
Before we
comment?
do,
Okay, so.
could I do a,
Yeah, you can only speak one.
and could I,
Thank you.
Mayor, could I do
No,
a
you got-
substitute to the substitute?
We're going to have a vote on his motion.
Can I substitute?
No, we've had 2 substitute motions.
No.
That's all you can have.
Yeah.
One.
No,
Oh, you have an amendment?
no, his didn't get a second,
Substitute.
so I made a substitute.
Yeah, but that's the end of it.
No.
How many substitute motions can you have?
2, but his.
He had one?
No,
Oh,
he didn't have
Oh,
one.
he didn't get a second.
Didn't get a
Okay, fair
second.
enough. So you want another second?
Yeah.
Okay, so my substitute motion is for meetings to be held on the first and third Tuesday of the month, which would be open session at 5 PM. We do 5 PM, which, by the way, just gives us some float time for people to show up, but we still get sort of the original matters, the preliminary matters out of the way. So 5 PM start time at the first and third Tuesday of each month. And then on that second Tuesday, we do a closed session at 4 PM. And that's sort of the direction for the motion.
Primarily closed session.
Primarily closed session, yeah.
Right.
So no open.
I'll second
no
that. I'll
closed
second
session
this.
on the first and third?
I'll second the
We
substitute.
just go,
Only
yeah.
if needed.
Yeah, it's needed.
Just to be clear,
Didn't work out.
it doesn't expressly say we don't, as you can see there's no mention of a 4:30 closed session start, right? It just says 6 PM. It's really meant to be the open session conversation. So it would be good to know, is there an intention? I strongly suggest we continue to have closed session at 4 o'clock.
On those days as
On all
well?
of those days. I mean, when
Okay.
have we not had a full closed session agenda
Well, it's so true.
for a single Tuesday?
That's fine if it works for
And I
council
think,
members.
I think we're going backwards if we.
I will say that it's because we never have more than an hour and a half to, and so we have a.
I hear what you guys are saying, but let's stick now to the council discussion
Either
and
way,
motions.
either way is
And
fine. But
It's coming
so
back.
Yeah.
Let's get, this is the
This is the motion.
third
but I-
motion, but the second one that got a second. So I'm trying to keep track of all this.
yeah.
So it's clear what your motion is.
It's almost clear.
And Councilmember Obaji
But I-
has seconded, but clarify it. if you want.
Yeah, just, Mr. City Attorney, what's the angst about?
No, I just want to understand it, and as I compared yours to the original, I'm going
Yeah.
to compare his to yours, just so you understand the two, is that I understand the intent of yours is no closed session on the first and third. You'll start earlier and just open session, and if you need to add closed session, we'll add it on at the end of the first and third.
which I can safely say we will every first and third meeting.
Okay.
See, I disagree.
Okay, that's fine, but
Okay,
that's not
but-
his motion.
But no, and the second motion, the second is starting, the second meeting shall be primarily for closed session. And what time was that starting?
4 o'clock,
4 o'clock on.
if that works.
On the second Tuesday.
Yeah.
And do you want to have 5 o'clock, so it's consistent with the previous motion, if we need to have open session on the.
5:30, you mean?
On the
Well,
second.
no, you want to keep them all the.
Yeah. So just to have this discussion,
I just want to know what to write down, because you're not going to, like, whatever direction you give, you're going to have to approve it twice more. So I just want to make certain I don't.
Okay, let's keep order here. Scott has got the floor. He's making a motion. Do you want to, tell us what your motion is?
yeah, the motion is on the first and third Tuesday of every month, we have open session starting at 5 PM. On the second Tuesday of every month, we have closed session to begin at 4 PM, primarily closed session. If we need to have closed session on the first and third of every month, we could start that at 4 PM. Mr. City Manager, you good with that?
I agree with all that, seconder.
Okay, is that clear now?
And do you need more
Yes.
detail about anything on that second Tuesday?
No, we'll write it up, and then if that passes, either
Okay.
one, I understand enough to write it up, and you can correct if it's.
The council always has the flexibility to change it.
Council members, do you have questions?
When,
This is
you know,
only-
if there's a
this
week
is
that comes
only-
up, hey, we gotta come in early.
passes, but-
If it
Somebody can
passes,
make the
this is-
motion.
either one is only what I present to you on August 15th.
And I
So
did-
is that a second?
well, I-
That's a second.
Okay, so that's,
Well, we did
That's
have
the
a
motion on
question
the
for
floor.
clarification from Councilmember Kuladerovich.
The clarification is that we're moving up closed session from 4:30 to 4 now, and we're moving up open session to 5, an hour.
Yes.
Got it.
yeah, that was my understanding.
Is that it? Okay.
And we have a
Second?
second to
All
the
right.
second motion. So no more motions
All right,
until we take votes.
call the vote.
Mayor, my hand has been up for the last few minutes.
Let's call the vote.
Say again?
I'm
My hand's
sorry.
been up for the last few minutes.
Go ahead, Councilmember
Let's call-
Marinho.
I would like to, I'm sorry, please go ahead. I mean,
I get to
figured we'd
comment
call the vote.
on the motion as well. I just want to point out, it's now basically 8 PM. We talk about efficiency. We talk about doing the business of the public. This is one item. I just want to be very clear and concise about the fact how long this is taking. Right, you're laughing. I know exactly. This takes a while. So I'm not going to be voting on this by any circumstance. Move everything up by half an hour, start off with there, and one small step at a time. And I'm going to be saying no. Thank you.
Call it.
Okay, so that's it. So we got a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. Councilmember Narenheim.
No.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
No.
Councilmember Kalirovich.
Aye.
Councilmember Obaji.
Aye.
And Councilmember Barron.
Aye.
Okay, I will not be vetoing this.
Thank you for telling me before I.
Let's move forward. Yeah, and I noticed the clock too, Councilmember Nierenheim. But this is important, and we had a motion and a substitute motion that didn't get seconded. Then we had another substitute motion, and then we had a last final substitute motion that did have a vote, and it passed. So I don't know how we cut that short, but yeah. And this is important, and people got a lot to say about it, and it's coming back. God, can't wait.
Democracy.
What time's it coming back at?
Still at 6
So
o'clock.
far, we're sticking to our schedule. So it's coming back as an ordinance, and then we'll have fun again. So there we go. Okay.
All right.
What am I doing here? Okay, next up.
Well,
N1,
That was in the short meeting.
It's item
N1,
this is
N1, Mayor.
one mayor.
N1. Hang on, I'm getting there, you guys. Discussion possible action regarding the scope of tree trimming services.
Yeah, while the crew here fires up the PowerPoint, we've got Rob Osborne here, Senior Management Analyst, Public Works. We've got Mike Klein, Deputy Public Works Director, Ted Simon, Public Works Director. While they're firing up, just a quick primer here. This is an item that's a follow-up to our budget motion. You'll recall when we ultimately approved the budget no longer last month, in June. There was a modification to the proposed funding as it pertains to the tree trimming contract. The purpose of tonight's item is to be very clear about what that will do to the scope of work as it pertains to that contract and the work that is completed each fiscal year. Effectively, we've got about 2/3 of the funding that we felt we were likely to need to execute our full traditional Grid 1 pruning, as well as the special requests that are on file. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ted.
So what are we
talk
looking
through.
for in this item?
This is really as much as anything as an informational item. There are a couple of options that pertain to go forward actions, but we want you to be clear about what we can and can't do with the level of funding that's available to us. So you can explain to your constituents as you get questions, what is expected and ultimately what will have to happen down the road. So,
But to change this is going to require a budget. I mean,
Yeah.
to do something change, it's going to require 4 votes.
that would have to be part of the follow-up action, and that can't happen tonight, and that would be based on your direction. Tonight's just to help illustrate the change in scope as a result of the change in
I just want
funding.
to be clear, there's nothing going to happen here except directing for further discussion with a potential
Potentially, or just acknowledgement
a
of the
budget
change.
adjustment that will require
Correct.
4 votes.
Correct.
With that, I'm sorry, I got to go, you guys. Everybody knows. And so anyway, thank you.
Okay.
Boy, wasn't that fun.
Thanks, Mayor.
And yeah,
we thought
I'll
we'd
be
be
here
done
next
by
week.
this time.
Did you miss it?
Do I miss it?
Did you miss it? Like all these weeks you've been not.
Yes, I did miss it, believe it or not, but got serious health issues that I have to take care of. So anyway, thank you guys. And anyway,
Thanks, Mayor.
With that, thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Wodzinski pretty much gave a great introduction to this. The only thing I'm going to add to that is that we have representatives from WCA here tonight. When we get to the question and answer time, they may be able to help on some of that clarification. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob to start the presentation.
enjoy, man. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ted. Rob Osborne, Senior Analyst for Public Works. Starting with a little bit of background on our tree trimming. So around town, we've got about 13,000 city-owned trees all over the place, a lot of them in parkways, but obviously tons in parks, street medians, areas around city buildings such as this one. We contract out for trimming. It's a kind of specialized skill. Some of our guys can do it, but we just don't have the manpower to do it in-house. It would take up way too much time from our core services. So we contract out, we do trimming. Most trees are trimmed on a 4-year cycle. There's some exceptions for trees in certain corridors that need servicing a little bit often than that, but most of the trees, it's every 4 years. As Mike mentioned, back on budget approval, June 16th, you guys approved for us $386,927 out of the projected cost for year 1, which is almost $600,000. So we've got about, as of now, we've got about 2/3 of the funding that we believe we'll need to finish Grid 1 in year 1. So talking a little bit about our tree trimming contract history. Back in 2019, we did a competitive RFP process to find a contractor. Council ended up awarding a 4-year agreement to West Coast Arborists, who have been our contractor for the better part of the last 20 years. We received 4 proposals, West Coast being the lowest. The other 3 were all at least 19.1% higher. West Coast went ahead and just worked for us for the last 4 years, and they completed that agreement on just at the end of June. The contract that was completed included a provision that allowed us to extend or renew for 4 more years as long as both sides were able to agree on terms. So we sat down with West Coast and asked them to give us a proposal. They originally gave us a proposal a little bit higher in about the 23% increase range. We sat down with them, asked them to sharpen their pencils, which they did, and we got down to a proposal of 19.6% increase over the current pricing. We brought that to you on consent on June 2nd, and it was approved. And to talking a little bit about the pricing, so 19.6% on the surface might sound like a big number, but it really comes out to less than typical inflation. The current the pricing in the old agreement was set from approval in 2019 for the next 4 years up until it just ended in June. The pricing in the approved agreement would stay fixed for 4 more years until 2027. So the 19.6% is effectively the only increase over an 8-year period. We talked to West Coast about some of their other contracts. They have contracts with Manhattan Beach and Torrance, among others. And looking at the unit pricing, our extension pricing looked very comparable, if not lower in most areas than those other cities. And then we just wanted to say for West Coast, they've been a really good contractor for us. For most of the 20 years, last 20 years, they've been our contractor. They provide consistent, reliable service. Their emergency call-out record is excellent. Trees fall on power lines at 3 in the morning. They've got somebody out within an hour, 90 minutes to fix it. So their tracking software, Arbor Access, their proprietary software, is the best in the business, and it's a really valuable tool for the city if we were to get a claim about a fallen branch, Arbor Access gives us every bit of data that we need to talk about, the size, age of the tree when it was last surfaced. So, they're the only company as it's proprietary that uses that software. So turning to the budget side of this, as I mentioned, we've got as of now, about 2/3 of the funding that we believe we need. Our core budget includes $283,000. As part of the budget motion, the council gave us another 104 or so. So again, we've got about 2/3. Our funding gap to try to complete Grid 1 for this current fiscal year is about $207,000. So looking at what we could do with the amount of funding available. So Grid 1 is where we normally start, is the south end of town, and goes south end into a community RL. With the current funding, we could only believe we could service about the crosshatched area. So we'd probably only make it from the south end to about Nob Hill, and it would leave the green section above the hatches there that we wouldn't be able to complete with current funding. And then looking ahead to year 2 of the contract, again, the hatched area, we'd finish off Grid 1, that's the green part that's hatched, and we'd get into Grid 2, the yellow, and finish probably about a half of it. We think we could get to about Emerald Street when the grid goes to Diamond Street. So the options that staff sees for this current fiscal year in Grid 1 is to go ahead and start with Grid 1. As I said, we think we could get through about 2/3 of it, and that would not allow funding for any special request or any out-of-grid trimming. We'd just be able to focus on standard trimming within Grid 1. The other option is to proceed with Grid 1 with the available funding, and then we'd come back to the council at mid-year with a status report and let you know where we stand on funding and what we would need to complete the grid. So we wanted to include a couple of pictures just to emphasize the importance and value of tree trimming. Our trash hauler, Athens Services, has mentioned that a couple of the trees in the south end, the larger ones, have grown to the point where they're in danger of obstructing access for a street sweeping vehicle that's coming through. So I gave you a couple of examples of that. And then also some trees getting into potentially obstructing sidewalks and pedestrian access. So obviously the tree trimming is a very vital part of what we do to maintain safety around town. So with that, concludes the staff report. recommendation is discuss and provide direction. As Ted mentioned, we have 2 of our representatives from West Coast here to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the report. Since I do not have access to Mayor Brand's.
You do.
Oh, actually I do. Thank you. Okay, good. And it hasn't for a while. Okay, there's no council comments that are, anybody like to speak? If you would, please make a request to speak. Okay, Councilmember Nierenheim.
Yeah, I'd go with option 2. See what we have left at mid-year. Go from there. WCA, you guys do a great job. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Our urban forest is important and vital, but we have to watch our bottom line with these trees. I mean, I get a lot of residents who call in. We do not have a views ordinance, and they want to have these trees cut, or they do want to have these trees cut or cut down. We have to, when I was down up in Sacramento multiple times the last couple of years, they let their trees grow a lot bigger and bigger than what we have here. We should keep that in mind. And again, we have to be fiscally prudent about how much we're cutting our trees and where we're going with it. So I'd rather go option number 2 and go down that path. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will say, I would agree with Councilmember Nierenheim. It's 4 years though, and I realize that we've asked for concessions, but I'm a little leery about no bid contracts. It's 4 years. It's a long time, and I realize inflation's taking a toll on a lot of people, but as a city, we operate this way, and we keep our contractors honest, and one of the ways of doing it is we have bidding process. So, we've kind of done the same thing with Athens in some ways, and I'd rather us not do this. I'd rather us put things out to bid, and I realize that we like West Coast very much, but this is part of the process, I think. So, anybody else like to make? Apparently not.
I'd like to be heard.
Councilmember Barrett, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, staff, for coming in. I know this is also near and dear to what you do, and it's important to me as well. How important is customer service when you're dealing with a vendor like this one? And what's been your experience?
Well, I think customer service is very important to us because it's very important to our residents. And as Rob had mentioned earlier, West Coast Arborist has been very responsive to a lot of those. We do get special trim requests from the council members who are receiving that from their constituents. And West Coast Arborist has been very responsive to address those for us. So I think that customer service has been fantastic. And Rob talked about their computer system that basically tracks all of this. To us, that's been fundamentally fantastic because whenever we get claims, we get requests, we get claims that trees have not been trimmed. When we go to Arbor Access, we're able to tell the history of the tree. We're able to identify the health and well-being of the tree. And it's been a really great tool for us to utilize.
And my experience has been the same, that they're very responsive. That's what I'm hearing from residents. They like the customer service. And I'm concerned about not providing the resources we need to get that type of service. District 5 doesn't have the most trees, at least I don't think it does in the city, but it's important. And, in my experience, sometimes this happens. You put a contract out to bid, contractors come out of the woodwork and they lowball it, right? They lowball it. And then a few weeks in, now their scope changes and now there's disputes and they're not answering calls because it's not, in their opinion, in the contract. And so I like the fact that we have a real good track record with this company, and each and every one of you three who are up here now have even more intimate experience. I don't want to rupture that. It's hard to find good customer service. It's hard to find a great vendor, especially one with this proprietary software that the three of you have been speaking to. And, trimming, no pun intended, this money from the budget, I'm very leery about that. And candidly, I want to do everything we can to get that back in and get us back at 100%. Because we heard earlier about, complaints from residents. We're going to hear a lot of complaints if we don't get this money back into the budget and keep what sounds like the best in class West Coast arborists on the job, backing us up, doing everything we need them to do to keep this city of, 65,000 plus residents happy and able to enjoy their quality of life. So I'll leave it at that. I want to be efficient, but I wanted to get that out there for everyone.
Thank you, Councilmember. I just wanted to add one more thing back to that efficiency of it. We agree, and we're stewards of the community's monies as well. And we did go through the RFP process, like Rob said, 4 years ago, when we received the original contract, because we don't want to just continue to amend these contracts either. The fact that we not only negotiated, but we received an increase in their 4-year bid from before, that's almost equivalent to the second lowest bid from before. That's where we supported bringing that forward for your consideration.
Yeah, I'm glad you locked that in. I'm glad you locked that in. Thanks for doing that. Go ahead, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, and I was going to make the same point. I think Councilmember Lowenstein's comment is spot on. We've had a lot of success in making sure that we compete these big contracts. And similar to Athens, right, we had a track record with West Coast Arborists where we felt as long as we could secure reasonably priced extension, as we did in negotiation here, we feel comfortable recommending to do that extension. 4 years from now, we probably won't be able to leverage the bid from what will then be 8 years ago, but knowing that we had just had gone out 4 years ago and that the pricing, to Ted's point, was only 0.5% higher than the second low bid.
0.5?
Only 0.5% higher than the second low bid 4 years ago. That gave us comfort to make the recommendation to you. Had it not been for that point of comparison, that metric, we probably would have strongly recommended an RFP. So it's credit to West Coast Arborists for being willing to work with us and negotiate that pricing. And their original proposal to us was higher than that. We, to staff's credit, leveraged that number down to put it inside the ballpark to where we felt okay with the 4-year exclusive extension. 4 years from now, depending on the proposal, we may have to go back out and test the market, but WCA has done a fantastic job for us. They're top of class in the industry, and we feel pretty good about what they're doing.
All right.
Okay. Councilman Keller-Jarvich.
Just one additional comment. With that software, I think we have value too that we're not talking about in the history, in the service that for all the trees in the city. There's value in that, and so going out to another vendor will probably lose that. Just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, Councilmember Obaji.
Question, kind of echo what Councilmember Barron said, but we have a problem tree at 1814 Pomona insofar as it grows these sharp thistles, and you guys have addressed it in the past for the resident out there, flies into her house and she can't even keep her windows or doors open. So will that tree continue to get specialized treatment under this plan, any of these plans, option 2, or specialized attention, I should say, out of grid or out of project area, whatever you all call it?
Yeah, I think at this particular time with the funding that's available, we don't have enough funding to finish grid 1, and we don't have the funding as such to do special trims in this particular case. So that would happen only after consideration at mid-year. If the council does provide additional budget for us to complete the grid 1 and the special trims, then it would be addressed at that particular time.
And then I guess another question I have is, what kind of liabilities are we facing? Do you foresee in your experience if we trim back this trimming?
Let me provide a bit of perspective. There was a time when we didn't complete the full grid in our community in a 4-year cycle. It actually took longer. We funded the contract at a much less degree than we do today. And we had to deal with the circumstances that ensued. For the most part, what it means is more palm fronds flying off the palms during windstorms and heavy rain events, which creates additional operational impact for cleanup. And then occasionally, as these trees get heavy and limbs fall, we do have limbs fall on vehicles and we pay more claims. That's the reality. I think the metrics are clear there. It's kind of that's the trade-off that we're making. But that said, we can only afford what we can afford. And there's no obligation under the law that says we have to trim every tree every 4 years. That's our own standard. It's our own policy. It's what our budget will allow. And as we do with all budgets, we will adjust our scope of service based on our available resources. Hence the recommendation today.
If I recall correctly, we had at the end of the last budget $282,552.12 left in, undesignated general funds. And I know, of course, we don't want to designate those, but let's see, what does it take? There's a shortage of $311,000 right now in this year, correct?
No, 207's our shortage this year.
207. I'm looking at the budget response report. What page do I need to be looking at?
You might want to pull that slide up, Rob.
Slide, Rob, backwards.
Sorry, yeah, if you could.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, funding gap 207. And is this a recurring shortage in that amount, or it's at least for this year?
Generally, yes. It fluctuates by, say, $50,000 depending on the grid cycle and the estimated costs, if I remember the budget response report correctly. But this is the shortfall for this particular fiscal year.
Well, I'll say this. If I were to play the north is north and south is south game, I'd say, my north Redondo community is not affected by this cut in the tree trimming budget, and therefore I don't care. But what I will say is I care about the whole city, and I would be willing to make a 4/5 vote to restore this funding gap so that districts 2 and 1 get their full tree trimming. That's all.
Well, I appreciate that. I would say that if we are going to do this and fully fund it, A, come up with the source of the funds, or B, consider not only mid-year, but year-end, because that comes in.
That will come first. Yeah, we'll have year-end designations last meeting in November or first meeting in December. That will be your first bite at the apple, unless we proceeded with the specific 4/5 budget modification resolution. I would suggest we wait until that time to consider this. The unallocated fund balance, as you know, was already pretty light in my view. I'd like a little more flexibility and cushion in our operating performance. Let's see how we finished at year end, assuming we hit our estimated fund balance targets and the like. We might be able, depending on how Public Works final POs and encumbrances and the year-end payments wrap up for 22-23, there might be a chance to carry over some funds. Perhaps not, depending on how tight the budget is for this past fiscal year. So I'd say let's maybe first consider the conversation then, as opposed to make any specific direction now.
I guess one final comment from Mayor Pro Tem is I think we are headed into an El Nino year. And while that means rain, I imagine that it also means wind. So
yes, yep.
Thank you. Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So, Mr. City Manager, then what you're recommending, would it in any way jeopardize the current contractor pricing we have with West Coast?
No. We have a not to exceed agreement. We direct their actions as available. Right now, we have funding to cover $386,000 worth of work. If we're able to find additional funds to cover additional work, we'll be able to direct that action under the agreement.
So that's your recommendation for this one?
Yeah, I'd say let's wait until year end, and if we're able to maybe find a way to carry over funds within existing Public Works maintenance operations, perhaps that'll solve our problem. You would take that action as part of the year end designations, and that would cover the gap. That would be, as I said, the first opportunity to do that with some reflection on budget performance.
You'll let us know if there's any issue that comes up before then when you know about it.
Will do.
Yeah, okay.
And it's spread evenly throughout the year, I assume, so that would take us through 8 months of the year based on my calculations.
Well, they perform, I think, the lion's share of their work more quickly than that. Yeah, so a lot of the work will occur this fall, as I understand it.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. Okay, any members of the public would like to speak to this?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Wayne Craig, resident of District 1. Hadn't really planned on talking about trees tonight, but since you brought it up, I drive around in the city all the time in my line of work, and there are trees that need to be trimmed all over the city. I think there's a problem with that. And to the city service, I think they do a really good job when they get around to it. It works out good. But the concern I would have is that while, I've seen trees in certain conditions all over the city, on my block, I could tell you some pretty nasty stories. 83-year-old lady across the street, not one, but two limbs came down, one crunched the back end of her car. City staff came out right away, took care of it. They did a great job. The lady was really happy. Luckily, no one was hurt. We were concerned because her car was stuck in the driveway, that as we were trying to move it out, another branch was going to fall on us. City services came out and took care of the other problem branches, so they did a great job. On South Broadway, I think on the 400 block, there was a whole tree that fell down that wiped out a car not too long ago. I think it was about 8 months ago. Before that, this is probably going back a few more years, but after hearing this giant snap, and I heard a guy crying when a giant limb of a tree fell on his Lamborghini that was parked on the corner of Pearl and Broadway. You probably remember that one. It was a while back. Thankfully, he had good insurance, so it took care of it. But these are just examples I can speak about because they're right around my house. So I hope that similar situations aren't happening across the city. But the point to be made is that I saw from that grid, it looks like it's, even with the funding we have, we can't even do the grids that we need to do in a timely manner. That will be a problem for the rest part of the city. And if there's some way to prioritize, when certain instances look like they're going to happen. One other thing I should mention too, this one, I used to live on across the street, a palm tree about 50 foot high. I was working at my office and suddenly I heard this, 35 limbs fell down at the same time. And it's on a street where probably, I think probably 10, 15 mothers and fathers roll their kids around in strollers. So that could have been a bad incident of something they came by at the wrong time. So those kind of incidents worry me. And from a liability standpoint, I think it's important the city address those things. So if there's a way of prioritizing those things that may be really problematic trees, that we could affect the whole city and avoid some liability. Just like we do already with, if you make a call in, if there's a curb that has a root that's pushing up, and I know the city's out immediately to take care of that to avoid slip and fall injuries. So maybe we could do something similar with trees. Anyway, just some thoughts. Thanks. One last thing I was going to say. Cost of, just from my business, just so you guys know too, the cost for any arborists to come out has gone up quite a bit. It's very expensive. So just so you know that if there's some additional cost involved in it, that's industry wide. Just like with any other services, labor is a very expensive liability. And just having an arborist come out it's probably about double the cost that I remember from like 3 or 4 years ago. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public like to speak to this?
Hello, as I mentioned before, I'm from Torrance, and I don't know if you know that Torrance is Tree City, USA. And it's costed the city so much money, they are cutting out or down trees. And I had the biggest Canadian silver maple tree, but the city kind of neglected, did not cut it for like 10, 15 years, if not more. And we had the drought and half of the tree fall down on the sidewalks. And luckily, nobody was there. I was lucky, did not hit my car because I parked on my driveway accidentally. But trees are very expensive. So it's a good thing if you have a company who take good care of it. But in the future, you should plan that making ordinances, because right now they had to take my tree out, obviously, because it was like, it would have killed somebody. Plus Torrance has these thousands of eucalyptus trees, what is the worst tree to have, they call them widow makers. So you could make a ordinance in the future to put in sensible trees, because big trees belongs to the forest. And some of these trees, like pine trees and other trees, they don't grow as big in a forest than on the city street, because one tree doesn't let the other tree go too far. Anyway, in the future, maybe you should set up an ordinance, what kind of trees people can plant in public streets, and half of this problem would be solved, because I have a tree now 4 or 5 years and it did not need to be trimmed. Of course, it's not a huge tree, but wouldn't be as big in the forest in front of my house. So trees are nice, trees are good and good for the environment, except they ruin the roads, they ruin the sewer system, and it's very dangerous, if they fall on people or whatever. Okay, thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you. And we do have a recommended tree pallet, correct? We do, if you guys would like to comment on that real quickly.
Yeah, actually, I would say that we have a tree ordinance that protects all of our trees, identifies, the type of species of trees that we recommend to be planted. We still have an urban forest that's here we have to maintain, and some of them, yes, do grow pretty large, and we trim them and maintain them accordingly.
You do a nice job. Thank you.
The pallet's also on our website.
Thank you. Do we have anybody from Zoom that would like to speak? Okay. Okay. So if anybody would like to make a motion, Councilmember Nierenheim again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Barrett, you said everything. You do everything, get this back into the budget fully funded. Our police department, we funded 2 extra spots. We have a bunch of extra spots. So at mid-year, we could always move over some of the extra money from there that we're not spending into this. In addition to that, we can always extend the time that 4 years to 4.5 years or 5 years. I think we have to be careful about setting an expectation that the trees are going to be cut and they're going to look prim and perfect. I mean, natural trees are not prim and perfect. They have their own canopy. There's 89, we are increasing on the number of trees that we're planting right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's increasing our number, right? When we come back with this, I think if we have the number of trees that we're increasing on a yearly basis and what our tree canopy is for our urban canopy, I think would be good to know, good to have. But also, set a general expectation for the public and understanding that, while we are not officially a tree city like City of Torrance is, and I don't know how they consider themselves a tree city, that trees themselves have their own personality, how they grow. And just because they might not look nice and beautiful, that just might be, and they clear up your view. That's not why we're cutting trees. We're cutting trees to ensure their health and viability, cut off dead branches, and then replacing the trees. So those are I would just make a motion to, we don't really need any action tonight.
No, we don't. I think we've heard pretty clearly what everybody.
I'll just make a motion to receive and file our comments, the staff report and public comments to this.
I'll second that. Councilmember Barrett.
Yeah, just to Councilmember Nierenheim's comment. I am not in favor of defunding the police, period, full stop, okay?
Okay. Councilmember Obaji.
I just want to say that we trim trees to make sure that they don't bring down power lines, cable lines, utilities, make sure they don't obstruct sidewalks, preserve ADA access. And when they're buckling sidewalks, we take care of those too. Those are expensive costs. So trees are unfortunate. They're a beautiful thing, but they are a thing that in a very dense neighborhood require maintenance.
And just to be clear, with the receive and file, we'll proceed through the course of fall with the funding we have available. And at year end, we'll contemplate what we can do to perhaps provide supplemental funding, either through a carryover item or have a discussion if there is residual funds beyond the projected estimated year-end fund balance that we had in the budget and was accounted for and largely spent. So we're not double counting here. We can have a conversation about perhaps allocating some of those additional resources to the contract at that time. And then, of course, mid-year would be a secondary opportunity for that if there isn't any money available at year end.
Okay, great. Okay, there is a motion on the floor in a second. Do a roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Karadjarovich.
Do we need a motion for this?
Well, receive and file, if that's what you're doing, receive and file.
Aye.
Councilmember Obaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
And I myself, 5-0. Thank you. Okay, on to item N2. Discussion possible action on the Community Development Director's approval of the 10th extension of an emergency coastal development permit. If 9 wasn't enough, 10 will be.
And
This
probably
is
count
not
on,
the end.
yeah, this is probably 10 of 30 before
Yes.
we're all, before we're all
So,
done here.
Brandy.
Hi there. Yes, so this is back in November of 2021, the Los Angeles County Department of Beaches and Harbors submitted an application to the Planning Division for an emergency coastal development permit to temporarily close the beach access ramp at Esplanade and Avenue A due to public safety concerns. They had completed an engineering study that found that the existing path railing landings wall were in poor condition and needed to close the ramp. So they had submitted that, it's a 60-day permit. They have to reapply for, in order to get a supplemental or this extension. This is their 10th extension. If you look at the schedule that they have, they've updated, they did push out when they would be submitting their coastal development permit application for the permanent replacement. So they've been doing the engineering work over the last year and a half, looking for funding. They're now at a place where hopefully when they have summer 2023, this was the schedule they gave us, hopefully that means within the next 60 days so that we don't have to bring this item back, because once they submit that coastal development permit application for the permanent replacement, we wouldn't have to continue issuing the emergency. So with that, the code, the municipal code requires that I provide a report in writing and orally that I have granted that extension that has been extended for another 2 months.
Okay. Seeing that I don't see any council.
Real quick.
Yes, Councilmember Nierenheim.
Real quick. So I posted this online. None of the scheduling has changed for any of this. Are we going to be supplying any money towards this? The answer is no, right?
No, the city is not.
Mr. Saman, the other portion of the ramp, this is the first portion of Avenue A. That portion is done, or the other ramp area, or not the walkway?
Oh, the upper walkway?
Upper walkway has been completed.
And
They did mention to us that they would like to repave the remainder of that upper walkway, but they're seeking funding for that.
And that's all county funds,
That is
correct?
all county funds.
We paid for the lighting on that project?
We are paying for the lighting, though that lighting is ours, it is not the county's.
Right. Okay. And when were they looking at doing that next portion of that?
They've not identified, on the upper walkway, they've not identified it. As they said, they're seeking that funding. Until they do, that's when they'll identify a schedule.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Appreciate it.
Okay, seeing that nobody else has raised their
I'll make a
hand.
motion to receive and file the item.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Kalajarovich is the second. Does anybody in the public like to speak to this item?
I used to use that ramp quite often, and it was very narrow, and I usually went with my bike up to Avenue C. It was easier to go up because somebody came down. You couldn't go up, especially skinny people like me. It was hard to get by each other. But when I saw that first, like 2-3 years ago, that was closed down, I said, blah, blah, and I read the article, how expensive it's gonna be to rebuild, like the county and the city and the beaches and harbors have to be deciding what to do and what not. And I did not see it lately, like 2 years ago, I did not went that way, but it's very funny when you have something that totally useless basically, and because that was it's a very steep ramp, so old people like me, I wouldn't even try to come up there. I go to Avenue C, as I said. But what I would like to say that, what I read about this, like they're gonna spend millions and millions and millions of dollars and handicap access and so on, I mean, my wife is handicapped now, but she doesn't have the wish to go down to the sand anymore. So I don't know why is that, or, there is a handicap access at Avenue C, but This is just show that how bad is state of California and LA County and everything, moving millions and millions of dollars going to be spent, fix something, but should just be abandoned, because we have Avenue C, you can go down there with wheelchair and everything if you have to. And I don't know, this is gonna be so much money, and I don't know, how long is it closed down?
Well, it's indeterminate, but they're
I understand
working
that
on
before.
the design right now.
It's been a year and a half.
So,
It's a year and a half?
it's been a year and a half, and it could be another
Okay,
year and a
so
half.
I thought it was more, but it just, it was so steep and so bad, that retaining wall and everything. And after I heard, if you rebuild it, you're gonna have to be wheelchair accessible. And I don't know how's that gonna be, because you have to turn around the landing and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I hope you figure this out and spend a few $1 million.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public like to speak to this? Okay, anybody on Zoom? Okay, then can I get a motion?
I did.
You did? Okay, right, I second. What am I thinking? Okay, sorry. Let's do a roll call vote. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Carol Jarovich.
Aye.
Councilmember Rabaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
And I myself, 5-0. Thank you. Okay, before we get to the discussion about California cities, city manager items.
Just want to say, as part of our announcements, I did also happen to have the opportunity to attend the ICA conference last weekend down in Coronado. Thought it was a great event, a series of seminars, a lot of quality input there and discussion. Appreciate that. It's something we need to talk about here, AB 1234. We're talking a little bit about our APP, our administrative policies and procedures as it pertains to conference travel and some of the announcements and the verbalization that we should be making in public sessions for at least those of us up here on the dais. And I want to continue that process that many of you share when you do go to these conferences. We'll be talking about that internally and probably updating our procedures on that. Just to make sure that we comply with AB 1234 when we go to conferences. We all go and we obtain a lot of good quality information, have made good contacts and connections for policy development. They're very much worth our time from a professional development standpoint, and we should be letting the public know when we do attend those and why they're of value. And there's a perception out there that sometimes these things are just to travel, and that's not the case. They're truly there to get work done and to learn how other agencies are performing and sometimes create best management practice as a collective group. So that's all I have tonight. I will throw a little nugget out there. I don't want to jinx it. We did tender an offer to a new traffic engineer that was accepted. Our efforts to revisit our compensation for that particular position may have finally paid off. The candidate is quite strong. We still have to go through our backgrounding process, but tentatively the individual will be starting in early September. There is a lot of work to do in that particular area, as many of you know, and we are excited to see that position filled. It's been quite some time.
Well, let's hope for the best. This is a long time in coming, so thank you.
It really is. This is, I think, our third go round. Excited to potentially have somebody back in that seat.
So I have a quick follow-up.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers double crossed,
I
yeah.
have my chief deputy starting August 21st.
Okay.
So just.
Oh, good. Okay. Councilmember Nierenheim.
Great news.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Lowenstein, has a good ring to it.
It does, doesn't
It does. Really good. Real quick, so are you going to add an agenda item to the AB 1234 or just a little caveat item like, C or something, boom, boom?
Yeah, what we're
reports?
doing, not to get too off topic, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss these things more in more detail at a later meeting, but we are updating our policies and procedures internally. That's one of our new assistant finance director, Stephanie, who has started. That's one of the tasks she's been asked to perform, in, of course, consultation with operating departments. So we'll be refreshing most of our APPs, and that is one internally that will be refreshed at the administrative level. And then as appropriate, we'll be bringing a discussion to the council for you all to understand that the impacts of AB 1234 and how you want to proceed to comply ultimately through that process.
So then you'll attack or touch the agenda.
Yeah. I'd like to have at least us have our APP prepared in draft and then get that to you all so you've got a chance to reflect on it.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, on to item P2, discussion possible action regarding changing start, I'm sorry, item P1, discussion possible action regarding the reinstatement of membership in the League of California Cities, also known as Cal Cities. So,
Yeah, so we had a referral back on July 18th to bring this item back for council consideration. We have Jeff Kiernan here. Thank you, Jeff, for coming down tonight to help answer any questions that council might have about the league's current efforts, now known as Cal Cities. I think the council's aware of that. The purpose of the referral is to reflect on our decision to withdraw from membership and perhaps reconsider that, given the Cal Cities efforts, particularly as a legal advocate for us. We have a few different matters that the league has stepped in on to assist us with, and I think this was a conversation to consider perhaps future matters where we may also need the league's assistance, and it may make sense to resume our membership. I believe the league has heard perhaps some of our concerns from prior considerations. But ultimately, this is a policy matter and one that perhaps is best served through a Q&A with Jeff, who's here tonight. Appreciate him coming down.
Mr. Kiernan, would you like to speak to the council?
Good evening, council members and city staff. It's good to be with you again. I, first of all, also want to quickly congratulate the two new members of the council since I was here last. I just hope that Redondo Beach rejoins Cal Cities and we get the opportunity to work together more closely in the future. Now, I've been in front of this council a few times over the last year speaking about the benefits of the League of California Cities, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. But of course, I want to say that Cal Cities is the leading advocacy organization for cities in California. 476 of California's 482 cities are members of Cal Cities, and that membership provides resources and benefits to every member of that organization. Elected officials and city staff alike benefit from Cal Cities programs, including our educational and networking opportunities offered through our many conferences and webinars, our legislative advocacy information and action alerts sent out by myself and my colleagues in Sacramento. Only Cal Cities members can take part in shaping the policy positions and legislative priorities that Cal Cities works on each year. But all California cities do ultimately benefit from the negotiations and lobbying Cal Cities does on the behalf of our members. Included in the dues packet from January each year is an estimate of Redondo Beach's return on investment, which shows an estimated 6.8 million funds negotiated or advocated for by Cal Cities that benefited Redondo Beach in the last fiscal year. I believe also the Cal Cities Legal Advocacy Committee within our city attorney's department has also been particularly important to Redondo Beach since on May 3rd of this year, that committee composed of 24 city attorneys from all corners of the state submitted an amicus brief in support of Redondo Beach and the other named charter cities in the effort to sue the state over SB 9. Our legal advocacy committee took this action because Redondo Beach's case raises important legal questions about the legislative power to preempt charter city authority. And with the legislature constantly churning out bills that push these boundaries in this area, I expect there could be additional legal fronts we may want to collaborate on in the future. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I did also want to mention we made several changes to the General Assembly for this coming year in response to a lot of the questions and input that was received from this city and others. So I just want to say I'm happy to be here with you again and happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Great. One question I have is when you and the leadership were here last time, you discussed a constitutional amendment pushing for local control. Do you know the status of that?
The Cal Cities Board did take a look at some new polling, and they have not decided to move forward, at least at this point, in running our own constitutional amendment for 2024. They haven't closed the door on that, but they have not made a decision at this point.
That was polling for the public or polling among your members?
Private polling that we conducted.
No, were the subject matters of the polling, was it the public or was it your member cities?
It was the public. The people who were surveyed was the
voters.
Public. Correct, yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah. let's see, Mr. Narenheim.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I just kind of want to establish what has changed since we left back February.
I think so.
Yeah, something like that. Have you endorsed our neighborhood initiative? Not you, but the voting members. When I don't say you, the staff, I mean the voting membership, just okay. Has the voting membership endorsed our neighborhood voices yet?
No, my understanding, we did obviously take another look at it after last year's assembly, throughout this year. They did not decide to take a position on the measure as it was written at that time. My understanding is our Neighborhood Voices has recently, within the past 3 weeks, submitted a new draft of their ballot measure. And I expect that we will want to take a look at that.
They're constantly getting input and updating. In fact, they have now projects that are 100% affordable. They have special stipulations in there for that, allowing process changes. So last year they talked about the General Assembly. Now I believe it's starting earlier, I believe.
Yeah, it is going to start earlier, and it's going to be separate from the closing session. So essentially, it will start at 8:30 in the morning and be scheduled until about 10:30 in the morning. That's long before the 12:30 or 2 o'clock end time for the day. As you will recall, we had comments from members who were in a hurry to get to their flights. We do see that when we have several resolutions or perhaps petitioned resolutions on the agenda, that those folks want to get really, they want to get back home. So our conferences don't happen to be the places you necessarily want to travel for fun with family. Sacramento and Long Beach are nice places to visit, but not necessarily for those purposes. So people do tend to want to get home on Fridays.
So you're starting earlier, but has the actual process changed for the resolutions? That was really the issue at hand last year, the process.
There's going to be more opportunities for commenting on the process. As I said, is also going to be completely separate. So those people who want to come and comment on the resolution would have that opportunity at the 8:30 time. Well, I don't see why you would, but we did not actually receive any resolutions for this coming year. So I don't know if we're going to have an opportunity to try that out unless there is another petition submitted again.
Right. So Cal Cities does advocacy. Where are you with advocating against SB 423, the one that's going to destroy the Coastal Commission, voter-led initiative, voter-led, or not just voter-approved initiative, not voter-led, voter-approved initiative of 1976. Absolutely got the housing portions of development for cities like us. We just denied a housing project in February, actually.
Yeah, we've been opposed to that bill since at least March, possibly before.
What are you guys doing on the advocacy side to try to get people to vote against it? Because it just passed the Senate floor.
It's in appropriations, if I'm not mistaken.
It just
passed appropriation. Now it's on the Senate floor. You're
right.
I'm kind of waiting to see. I haven't taken a look personally at the amendments that came out. It passed through Natural Resources very closely. The Coastal Commission was issuing their opposition to. I watched the whole hearing. They issued an opposition to that bill, and there was a lot of back and forth. So it barely squeaked out of Natural Resources. But we have been organizing our membership on it. It was part of the bill package that we took when we did our legislative action days in March or April of this year. So we've been working on it all year.
What's the status of fighting against RENA and other developers remedy issues?
I don't know that I can really comment on that. There are some legal cases that I've been made aware of just the last few days. There aren't precedent setting, but it does certainly make, it is concerning that the court system seemed to be falling back on what we have warned our members in the past tends to be a benefit to the state over the cities. So we do end up seeing that happening quite a lot.
Right. What I don't want to have happen is Redondo's just joining as a quid pro quo. You know, we're just joining just to get help and support. I think the league should be, since you do advocacy, you do education, you do a lot of different things, but you should be helping out, as exactly you said, all cities, whether members or not. You know, I think it's very important that we move down a path where the league has really proved itself in moving forward. It's tough, I understand. And when I say the league, Cal Cities, I mean the membership. I really am speaking to the cities that are out there, because it is vitally important that the cities and the representation out there realize how important this is. You know, Hermosa Beach is dealing with their housing element right now, and Mayor Ray Jackson asked me just the other day and said, why aren't more cities gearing up around this? And a whole list of questions. I'm like, you know, we've been there. Last year we were there. I'm right now just at a point where I'm sitting back and watching what other people are doing. Redondo Beach has been on the forefront. We're defending our own actions at home. We're defending the actions of others that keep constantly attacking us. And I want us just to stay focused in on us here in Redondo until others really start showing up and fighting. I mean, fighting hard. I don't want just, we're going to change a little bit. No, I'm fighting hard because it's expensive and it's hard, and we got to stay focused with our resources. We're very limited in resources in Redondo Beach. So, yeah.
Yeah, I will say that we have been working on, me personally, for more than 2 years to try to, on RENA and the whole process. There were a lot of contributing factors there, the pandemic, the lawsuit that went against to SCAG, and the delay in the census data. All of these things really contributed to pushing cities in a really bad position to being up against a deadline that the state said they were never going to extend. And that has been a problem. I watched the Hermosa Beach Council meeting where they discussed the RENA, and I know they've had a tremendously difficult position trying to get their housing element approved. Redondo Beach, has had an approved housing element for quite some time. But I believe I still have 8 or 9 cities. Manhattan Beach just got theirs approved yesterday, I believe. So I still have, I think, 8 or 9 cities of my 25 or 3 that have not been approved.
One of the things that's giving me great pause is my next question. Going back to my original point. Do you know who Miss Lamb is? Annie Lamb?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And do you want to tell everyone who she is?
She is the executive director of 2 of our diversity caucuses, maybe 3, the Women's Caucus, the API Caucus, and I'm not sure if there's another one.
And the wife of Anthony Rendon.
That's correct.
And employed as a lobbyist.
I didn't actually know she was a registered lobbyist myself.
Not a lobbyist, not a lobbyist, or paid as an organization that lobbies the legislature. So not an actual registered lobbyist, but paid by an organization that lobbies the legislature.
Was that us?
The League of California Cities have reported paying Lamb's business nearly $600,000 over the last year, and half as it lobbied lawmakers on bills related to housing, homeless, public safety. I pulled that one paragraph out very specifically. I appreciate the lobbying for housing, homelessness, and public safety, but that's LA Times. I don't know exactly what the schedule is. Again, my problem with City Redondo is I don't want to get back being members for with the league just because we need something. I want to have a greater voice, a greater stance. And again, my point here is other cities, cities that are voting members, need to understand how hard we've been fighting in Redondo Beach, and we're focusing in on our own city, defending ourselves against these malicious prosecutors. It's very important to me because it's very personal to me as well, because we've had developers come here and attack us in the city. And it's very, we're defending ourselves, we're focusing ourselves.
I think that'd be important. The president of the League of California Cities, Ali Taj, was here in December and asked if anyone on this council or anyone even really on city staff would be willing to take a more active role and participate in the League of Cities policy committees. And unfortunately, no one accepted that invitation. I think if you want to make a real difference, you or your colleagues or someone from Redondo Beach needs to participate in the process. Come to join a policy committee, come to our annual conference, join that General Assembly and have that discussion. Because it's not me who sets these policies, it's our membership.
You are hit the nail on the head. It's the membership. And I think one of the things is if someone here makes a referral to be a part of it, they shall be the fighter for this city to move this city forward in that action, in that position. Not just we're going to be part of this and we're just going to sit there. No, actually take a leadership role. And Jeff, I smile at your statement because I'm president of ICA. I couldn't be any more proud of the things I did for ICA, Independent Cities Association. I've spent my time, we talked here earlier about starting earlier today, and I don't have the time because I spent so much of my personal time down at ICA, building ICA. We don't do advocacy for a reason, we do education and networking, and that is so powerful in and of itself, beyond amazing. We had our district attorney down there, George Gascon, and questions, comments, and concerns were heard. It's not advocacy, that's education. What's his story? What's our story? Comparing the two. So if someone here in this council wants to go forward, they have to be willing to take up the league and actually take a leadership position to actually sit on one of these positions and start moving our agenda forward. Otherwise, just becoming a member and not actually doing something is I think, disingenuous. And if we're going to join up on the Cal Cities, whoever makes the motion, whoever seconds it, has to be ready to be assigned to the league and go to and participate and spend the many hundreds of hours per month that's going to take to advocate our position. Because that's what I've done with ICA. And it's been very powerful. So that would be my ask of this council. I don't have the time to do it because I spend my time in another organization. Yeah.
Today happens to be the 13th year anniversary of my beginning of employment with Cal Cities. And in those 13 years, Redondo Beach has actually been very involved in the past. We've had a previous president of the Los Angeles County Division. We had a chair of one of our policy committees and another very active member of one of our policy committees. So I would welcome that opportunity to get Redondo Beach back involved.
I will say it's interesting that you said that the polling showed that there was an interest in constitutional amendment. I was at another event from our Neighborhood Voices, and I heard a person who was a political strategist say the polling was actually very much in favor of a constitutional amendment limiting control by the state in terms of local matters. So
I may have misspoke. That's not what I intended to say. The polling showed that we were in a weak position to craft a ballot measure surrounding local control. The board took that polling position, that polling information in and decided against moving forward. They didn't take an action not to, but they've essentially tabled it for the moment.
Okay, so yeah, I couldn't register the two at the same time. Because to me, when I talk to just people on the street, they say, yeah, I'm really tired of what's happening at the state level. So, and this is bipartisan.
I can't speak to the poll that Cal City has conducted because I really only saw the top line numbers, but even the PPIC polls that I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years, the housing crisis, the cost of housing has eaten, at least it looks as though Californians are not willing to accept slowdowns in housing, no matter where they come from. And
A poll is
we,
only.
what Cal
sorry.
Cities has been trying to do is build up our authority again on this subject and talk about the wonderful things that we are doing as cities, as a whole of California, trying to build affordable housing in order to get to a place where we can move forward with something like you're discussing on a future ballot.
Yeah. Well, a polling question is only as good as it's written. So if you ask people, would you want lower housing prices? Of course, they're going to say yes. If you say, would you like a 10-unit apartment building next to your single-family house? I would bet you most people would say no. So it's all about how the poll is written. So Councilmember Obaji.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein. So Jeff, the dues are $22,000 a year, right? If we join now in August, do we pay $22,000 for this year, or do we pay a prorated sum?
No, we would not be prorating anything. It would be the $22,000. It's $22,897.
Okay, so I'll tell you and the public generally that in this organization with 476 of the state's 482 cities, I do not expect systemically that they are going to do anything but echo the same policies that we are seeing out of the legislature. The majority of cities probably don't have a problem with the build housing everywhere because they're going to experience an influx of residents, an influx of commerce, an influx of real estate taxes, especially the ones that are less developed than our own. So I don't ever expect Cal Cities to be the champion of stop shoving density down our throats in the state of California. They're just systemically not set up to be that way. And like you said, Councilmember Nierenheim, ICA is not set up to be an advocacy group for a reason. There's a lot more unity if you don't have to pare down make sure everybody's on the same page with regard to certain subjects. Alternatively, you just bring speakers in and educate folks, which you're doing a great job at there. So I don't expect Cal Cities to be our savior on this stuff. Could you share 2B, please, Madam Clerk? Well, I do want to ask you, Jeff, while you're here, I saw this publication that came out July 26th, this newsletter. Take action, SB 423, AB 309 would greatly expand state authority to approve housing without following local zoning or development standards. What kind of reaction do you get when you send these email blasts out?
It varies. We've been pushing the SB 423 hard all year long. I don't have.
Pushing against SB, I see a big oppose for anybody in the public.
Our advocacy position on that bill. I don't know exactly how many letters we've received, but it had, like I said, it also was part of our legislative action day in April.
Okay.
AB 309 was a new action alert. That bill, and when I sent it out, I keep glancing as if you would have received it, but I guess you wouldn't. But I did send that out to the city managers who are members and indicated that although it would not impact any of their cities, we hoped that they would still sign on in opposition in solidarity with the cities that it would affect.
All right.
Because that bill was rewritten recently to be essentially a pilot program, mainly in the Bay Area. So AB 309, I try not to waste the membership's time with emails that they don't need to read. So I focused on SB 423, AB 309. I included it, but indicated that it would not actually impact their cities.
Do you see, in your experience, have there been of the 22 cities or so that you represent here in Los Angeles, has there been any increase in cities kind of frustrated by what the state is doing? Or is it kind of just the status quo? The ones who are against it are against it, and the ones who are ambivalent or for it are for it?
Most of my cities, I'd say, have take our positions to heart and agree with them, including Redondo Beach. I have some cities. I have, as I said, 25 cities, if I don't count the two of the non-members. I have the South Bay, the West Side, and the Los Virgenes Malibu cities, plus the city of Los Angeles. The west side tends to be much more open, much more interested in building affordable housing, in developing to their RHNA numbers. But you still get pushback from those cities in many of the cases because of the tremendous increase that the RHNA had over the last, I believe that was 2017, when essentially the RHNA numbers were tripled. And unfortunately, at that time, we didn't get a whole lot of letters and involvement from a lot of our cities. And it sort of snowballed from there. That 2017 was really a tipping point in advocacy when the legislature, they got that 2/3 majority in each house that they needed, and they just kind of steamrolled us.
Right. And when's the next Cal Cities meeting?
Well, our division installation is on Thursday here in Long Beach to swear in Rolling Hills Councilmember B. Derringer as the president of the LA County Division. And then I think you may be referring to the next big
General Assembly or whatever you call it.
Yeah, General Assembly. The annual conference is September 20th to the 22nd. I think, double check my math. That should be Wednesday to Friday.
So City Manager, do we send any staff to those meetings?
Historically, we have, yes. With our withdrawal, I don't believe we have a lot of folks scheduled to be there in September. Unfortunately, this date happens to coincide with the run-up to our Beach Ranch Festival, so it's not a great time for myself or other department heads to travel to Sacramento. I do believe we have an individual on the council who is registered to be there. So, and I think, as you all know, not being members doesn't disallow us from attending. We just don't participate in a membership role. We pay a higher fee as part of registration.
Okay. Would we get refunded the difference if we rejoined, the difference in the fee for the council member who's attending the
For the annual conference?
Yes.
Yes, in fact, you would.
All right, okay. So I don't see this as they're going to be our great ally. I think they do a valuable service in apprising us of the legislation that's coming down the pipeline, trying to rally other cities onto our side. I don't think they're actually going to be able to successfully rally and use cities onto our side. I do see the number of legal fights that we are taking on in closed session every single week that the public doesn't get to hear about in great detail, and the amount of pressure the amount of shots we have to take. We have to take every shot we get to challenge the state and to assert our rights and autonomy as a charter city. And we need an ally to do that. And there's no other organization I'm seeing right now who's willing to support us, except for Cal Cities and their legal advocacy group. So on that basis, and pretty much exclusively on that basis, I'll make a motion to reinstate our membership with it.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Not yet.
And designate, let me amend it to designate Councilmember Kalajurovich as our delegate.
Councilmember Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Jeff, for coming in. I just wanted to turn to our city attorney, find out if there's anything he wanted us to consider in connection with this.
They have been very helpful in matters that the council wanted us to sue on. I did serve a number of years ago, twice, 2 terms on their legal advocacy committee, which decides which cases to intervene on. We never intervene below the appellate level. They've done it at our request twice, once in SB 415, where it was hugely successful to have the city of San Francisco write the amicus brief on behalf of the League of California Cities. They did at, I think it was your request, I actually paraphrased your wording in an email. They did continue to participate as an amicus on behalf of a city that had not made the request in the SB 9 case and did file the brief. The council in the budget has already set aside some money to challenge SB 423 if it becomes law. I spoke to, after a referral, I spoke to, I think it's Jason Ryan, their interim legal advocacy director. I have a tentative call with him tomorrow, a call either to say we're staying out, or if you go back in, then it will immediately begin the process of starting to get cities together as part of a coastal city coalition to oppose it. And the last thing I'll say, you all see the cases we're in, everybody pushing for housing at the expense of local control. They have any number of amicus briefs that they can count on, and we don't have readily available. And so it has been very important to us. I think the council's direction is wise to direct me to challenge it, but I'd like to be able to fight without one hand tied behind my back. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, we'll turn over to the public now. Anybody who'd like to speak from the public on this item?
Hello, it's Andy again. I'm from Torrance, and if I'm not mistaken, the city of Torrance quit these guys because they were complaining about the last meeting they went. This guy did not do nothing for them. They ignored them. They were, as my mother-in-law used to say, that useless like tits on the board. So city spending money for this kind of organizations, including Torrance, and I don't know why, because as just he said, if you want to have something done in Sacramento, go and complain. Because I attend Torrance meetings every time and I complain, and not too much result, but if other guy complains for me, this guy's making money, he's here. He's paid to be here. You know what I mean? So I don't know what he accomplished or what is this organization accomplished for your city, but I can guarantee you Torrance quit them, and they don't easily quit. They joined organizations like the Independent Cities organization. So if I'm independent, then I'm not with you. I'm independent from you. So why would I even join an organization when I'm independent with somebody independent? Then we are not independent. So that's how they thinking. But even Torrance, who's not afraid to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for this kind of organization, they quit this organization because they went to their last meeting and they were totally ignored, and they were just like useless for the city. So I urge you, just keep the money, put it in the tree trimming. You know what I mean? If you want to rejoin these people, you can rejoin them anytime. In the meantime, just email your representatives. Always the city council in Torrance, our representatives, they're shoving down these new laws in our throat. And then they're celebrating with them when they get together here. The dude has an office on Torrance Boulevard. You don't need these guys. Get your suitcase and go to the office. They are right here, our representative. They are right here on Torrance Boulevard. Look up their address and complain there, save your money. These guys for a dinner, a dinner and they speak, you listen, and you go home with nothing, empty-handed. Thank you very much.
Anybody else like to speak to this item?
I have
Okay,
someone
anybody
on Zoom. Kyle Johnson.
Okay.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yes, I'd just like to agree with and echo the last speaker that this sounds like a massive waste of time and money for the city council as a whole. It doesn't seem like we should be doing this. I don't see what we're getting out of this, why this would make things any better for us. I think that this is just like, save the money and put it towards tree trimming. And in a time when we have problems that we need to tackle with this city, I don't want us to waste more time and money with more lawsuits that we don't win, fighting what kind of seems to be, inevitable, it feels like. It seems like we would be better served either going our own way or collaborating on specific issues on an as-needed basis. But we left for a good reason, and we should stay out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
That's it. No e-comments. That concludes the
There is Mr. Obaji.
Just one final comment, Mayor Pro Tem. I recently corresponded with Councilmember Bridget Lewis from Torrance because they had voted to, or not even voted, staff rejected BCHD's proposal to build that bike path through Torrance. And so they're going to proceed with building it half of a bike path, and it'll stop when it gets to the Torrance border. And I emailed her and I basically asked her why. And she expressed to me concern about the Healthy Living Campus. And I said, okay, well, you've made your point, and this has nothing to do with the Healthy Living Campus, but this is gonna harm both of our residents of both our cities and commuting. So please consider on bicycles and making the whole South Bay bicycle friendly. I think we've made, so the same message applies here. I think we've made our point to Cal Cities. They're not losing money by us rejoining, but the stink was made and we joined Torrance, and we could withdraw again, I suppose, in the future. But I think our expectations have to be adjusted. That this is not the organization, this is the organization that will keep us apprised of the changes that are occurring at the legislature and what's coming down the pipeline and help us potentially with the legal fight. But they're not going to be the one who's going to successfully oppose these bills at the legislature. Only the people of the state of California through a constitutional amendment are going to oppose the legislature. So that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Narenheim.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Sure.
Part of this LA Times article, lofty payments to Lamb and her proximity to one of the most powerful politicians in California have raised questions about the potential for spouses to profit from their partner's public service and create conflicts of interest in the state capitol. Quote, it's not a terrible thing for her to be employed in that way, presuming that she has expertise to give that advice, said Ann Ravel, a former member of the Federal Election Committee and former chair of the state watchdog agency, the California Fair FPPC. And she goes on to talk about ethics. If the league hires the wife of one of the most powerful politicians in California and still isn't able to stop these bills moving forward, I think there's a greater discussion that needs to be had. Ann Ravel didn't even know the difference between a 410 or a 460. We all had to file a 460 last night, except for our city manager up there, every single one of us. And, again, unless somebody really raises their hand tonight and says, I'm going to go to the league and I'm going to get on these boards and I'm going to spend the hundreds of hours of time to move our issues forward and get people from around the state to fight for the issues that we're having here in Redondo, we need to stay focused in and do everything we can at a local level here and to defend ourselves against those that are attacking us left, right, and center. I appreciate, I myself will probably end up going in September, regardless of us joining. The floor is an amazing opportunity to network and see people. It's an amazing opportunity to network and just see people in general. But we need both the league, and when I say league, the membership, Cal Cities membership, to fight and hear us. And we just want on this council to stand up and say, I'm going to join XYZ board and move our issues forward. I don't want to just assign someone who has a little bit of time or some time. I want someone to really sit there and say, I'm going to take our fight and move that fight forward. I think it should be Councilmember Barron. He's a lawyer. He was on the planning commission. He understands the repercussions of what's going on, but it's going to take hundreds of hours per month to get up there and really start networking and start talking and get on these boards and become the chair of these boards. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. And then report back to us all. And I think that's the most important thing here. This isn't about joining or rejoining. It's about us here internally. Are we going to take this fight and move this to one of the boards? So that's where I stand. Unless someone is going to emphatically say, I'm going to be doing all of these responsibilities and moving us forward, I just don't believe that we ourselves have to have that fight internally.
Okay. Would anybody else like to address council? Okay. I will say that, while I do appreciate your efforts, Jeff, when Ali and the others, Carolyn, came here, I was really hoping that we would make a dent in terms of interest for advocacy for local control, and I just haven't seen anything. And I guess if I saw some effort towards that, I would seriously consider rejoining. But it seemed a bit empty, honestly. And I understand the position you guys are in. You've got some cities that really want to support Sacramento, and you have a lot of cities that really don't want to support it. And it's a tough position to be in. But my personal stance on this is I'm pretty much appalled at what's happening in Sacramento. And I happen to be a Democrat, so it's tough for me to see what's happening within my own party and what they're doing to local cities. So, but it's a bipartisan issue. There's a lot of Republicans feel the same way, and a lot of Democrats feel the same way. So it is what it is at this point. I would love for us to be active members, but at this point, I'm with Councilmember Narenheim. I don't see, even though it would be helpful in fighting in court, having amicus briefs, in some ways it's a little bit empty because I don't see the will on behalf of the membership of Cal Cities, even though they would sign on as a friend of the court. I don't see the fight in there at all. So anyway, there is a motion on the floor. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Narenheim.
No.
Councilmember Kalajarovich.
Yes, aye.
Councilmembers Obaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barron.
Aye.
And no for me. So it passes 3-2.
All right, now that it passed, is there anyone going to want and willing to assign themselves to a board or commission on, or not a board on the league? Now that this item is here in front of us?
I don't think we can assign ourselves.
we can do that.
Well, is someone gonna go to this league and now that we're a part of this and this is,
I think the mayor can get a request for an appointment, and then he can talk with the council members, and then he can appoint somebody.
I would make a referral at the end of the meeting to do just that. So speaking of, we're to mayor and council referrals to staff. So Councilmember Narenheim, do you have a referral to staff?
I will start off with that. I will bring back our resolution, to update a resolution to appoint a member of the council to the California cities.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right.
Okay, is that it? Any others?
Oh,
yeah, I guess.
Any opposed?
Saying.
How about any opposed?
Anybody opposed to that? Okay, motion passes.
Two things. We just did 4th of July. And we had a lot of discussion, vibrant discussion here in this community on 4th of July, whether what we should do or not do. I'd like to get maybe mid-September a motion to get a debrief and planning for next year's 4th of July in mid-September. Would that work?
Yeah, just give me a little flexibility, maybe third Tuesday in September, first meeting in October, kind of right in that range.
September, October-ish, just to get some planning, because I know there's a lot of groups out there already looking toward.
Yeah, and and if we're going to proceed with a water-based show, we're going to start that permitting process sooner rather than later. And we got to go out and find a vendor that's going to hang with us, so.
Got copies from other cities, actually.
Yeah, we were thinking the same. We need to come back and have that discussion, so.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that. And anybody opposed? Okay.
Okay, the last thing I have
I'll
here.
just say, I'm just based on city manager saying that works, I'm okay with it. So yeah, no opposition.
Yeah. Okay. The last thing I have, I'd like to get a motion to have the Charter Commission come back at the either the August 15th meeting or the meeting thereafter.
I will say the August 15th meeting is
The first meeting in September.
Loaded.
Then, for an update to the Charter Commission as per the request of the city treasurer, who was down here talking about one of the issues that they have just recently found that we should be possibly addressing.
Update the city council, you mean?
Update the city
Is
council,
that
yeah.
enough time for you?
So you want to make it specific to the treasurer's issue?
No, just have them come down. It doesn't need to be broad. It's just a simple report. They can come down. You can, in fact, they can blue folder a report and the chair, they can, and in fact, that would work good because they're just meeting this month. They can just create a report and send it to us, and then we can look at it and say, what's going on here with this particular.
Well, you're going to
items.
have, to two-step this item. You're going to have to bring an item back to discuss, directing the Charter Review Committee to bring back an item as a referral. So.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you can't make that direction tonight.
It's just an update.
Well,
No, what I'm saying, you're right, but I just want to get a report of what's going on. I'm not changing their resolution.
directive?
Yeah, directive.
Well, I
We're not
suppose-
changing that. So you're right. That's exactly what I'm
Can't you
asking.
just go speak to the chair and tell him?
Yeah, what I was going to suggest is, if you will, and you've made this interest, they can send a report at any time. And I did speak to the treasurer in that. I think that issue needs to go to them, to you, as opposed to you to them. But they can do a report as to progress at any time.
And we can't discuss it as a body up here. Now we're
So
starting.
you agendize it.
Right, exactly. And it's just, we've gotten reports. I've gotten reports. I've now heard it. And I'm like, okay.
So why don't you just agendize a discussion about what's happening at the Charter Commission?
That's
So all the
exactly
rest
what
of
my-
us-
And then you can
report was.
invite them to come down. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what my report was, yeah.
Okay, well, is there a second on that?
Yeah, if that's what you're doing, if you're
Yeah,
discussing
yeah.
as the council, and then you're simply
I'm not
inviting them
changing
to come down.
directives.
Yeah.
Directions?
There's a motion, a second, any opposed?
I had a question about it.
Yeah.
So you're there every night with the Charter Review Advisory
I
Committee?
missed this month in preparation for the hearing yesterday, but.
Okay. And that was a Calitano meeting as well, right?
Correct.
Okay. So this report that's being suggested and coming back here, that's
It's not a
our,
report, it's not a report.
just a discussion?
Just a discussion.
Okay.
Just a discussion to hear whatever,
Whatever anybody has to report from.
right. And then you can give, okay, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is it premature? I know there's other things going on. Would it be better to wait until something happening next month? And then, I just want to be efficient, I mean, it's part of that larger vision.
So I'm not sure what the intent behind this is. And I don't know if they made, so you can speak to that. They haven't, unless they made it this past Thursday, they haven't made decisions. And so I'm not sure what the intent is.
We gotta have council discussion. That's the.
What,
Well,
that's my
what the intent
question.
of the discussion would be.
Progress is what I.
Yeah, what's the intention of the discussion?
Vote no, Scott, if you want to
Yeah.
vote no, let's move on.
Yeah, I think we need to move.
I
on.
just want to, be fully informed. Is there anything else?
I don't want to get into a discussion, it's just a referral. So do you want, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
Councilmember Kalajarovich.
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councilmember Obaji.
Pass.
Okay, Councilmember Barrett.
Nope.
Okay, I just have two fairly quick items. One is about our participation in the Sea Line extension, sending a bus there. I think it's about $1,500 to $1,700 for our side.
So.
Along with Lawndale, I was wondering if maybe you could talk to Sean Moore, see if that's possible. And then bring it
Discussion
back.
about commissioning a bus.
Yeah,
We can do that.
okay,
Discussion commissioning a bus.
For the Metro meeting.
with the Metro meeting.
Second that.
Yeah, okay.
And for
Anybody
which
opposed?
specific metro meeting, just to be clear, the upcoming
it's
draft
the end of
DIR
September.
release?
A Metro board meeting
end of
tentatively
September.
scheduled for,
Like the 26th
yes.
or so?
August.
27th, I think I want to say.
Yeah, I want to
I
say
have the
something
date,
like
hold
that.
on.
September, did you say September?
Yes.
Whoops, wrong. Nikki.
Just the cost, I'd like the cost and who would be open to in terms of our city. Okay,
We're having a rally 8:12 and 9:28, 9 a.m.
okay, the 28th, okay. Anybody opposed? Okay, the second thing is, just, I want to, I don't want to stall progress in the harbor. We budgeted some things like blade signs and digital signage and also the marquee board down there. I want to know when we're going to bring back the signage ordinance.
Yeah, Greg and I talked about that today. We're going to bifurcate, I think, the signage ordinance so we can move more quickly.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be a massive comprehensive kind of review, especially for the signs that might pertain specifically to our property. So I think we can get a discussion to you here in the next, in September. I think we can bring that to you. The directory, with the budget action, we're already able to proceed with, so we're
That, and the blade signs and all that. I
yeah,
think he's
blade
gonna go to
signs,
Harbor
that's,
Commission first if necessary.
yeah, we can talk about just design work with them. We can make that a matter of administrative work, yeah.
Got it. Okay, great. That's it then for me. Okay, then can I get a motion a second to adjourn to next week's meeting on Tuesday?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we'll see you then. Thank you.
Closed session only, 4 o'clock. No, I'm kidding.